Boom, slosh. The breathtaking battle between Jon Stark and Carl was happening in the second ring. The battle was breathtaking. On one side a man wielded a white greatsword while on the other side was a man standing on the hill casting spells to hit the swordsman. The hill was also made from his sorcery. The cultivator Jon Stark versus the sorcerer Carl from the upper realm. Jon moved viciously, even though he had killing intent in every one of his moves, he still preserved the charm of his sword in every bantam move. Carl, on the other hand, was a ground attribute sorcerer. He didn't cast any big spell, his small yet calculated move created numerous obstacles for Jon Stark. Sometimes his foot got stuck, other times he faced countless rocky spikes, and at worst some flying boulders twice his size were thrown at him. With the sword in his hands, the man in white slashed and slashed until he made his way towards Carl. His sword was about to reach Carl when he felt chills running deep in his bones. He halted his attack and bolted back to maintain distance. Jon Stark took a deep breath. I was about to die. My instincts are telling me that this man is planning something, he said to himself as he looked at Carl, who had a grave visage. You are an experienced fighter, no newbie genius could feel the death traps, praised Carl. Jon smiled gently. Even though Aur is the one with the title of Battle Maniac, I still have the record for the highest number of duels in my generation. This duel shall be your last. My only regret is that such a gem like you is born in this trashy place. When Carl completed his sentence, he started a short chant. Sixth circled spell, Sons of Ground. 3 figures emerged from the ground. That area was the same as where Jon was about to land earlier. 3 different types of golems came into being. The first one was huge, around 3 meters tall. The rocks around his body were bulked, and he had a long terrifying mace of rocks. The other one was a 2 meters tall golem. It has a spear-shaped lance of rocks and a rocky shield. The third and last had a slim body. Its size was around 1.7 meters, and it has sharp and long rocky dual blades in its hands. The fair sword of humanity looked at the 3 golems and gulped. Oh boy! He exclaimed. Fairy Hololeth against Rima. 2 women who just lost their loved ones were venting their anger on each other. The whip attacks of Rima were tremendously dangerous for the squishy body of Fairy Hololeth, but to Rima's shock, Fairy dodged every one of the attacks. She moved like a fallen leaf moving in the winds of autumn. Random aimless movements confused Rima beyond the limit. You bitch! Rima yelled and called out her martial spirit. Come out, Zaruma. The giant strange bird came out and revealed its body. Kawwwww. It cried like a raven, but by no means it looked like a raven. Its odd 2 heads and the entire body had feathers made of acidic liquid. Fice, fish, piss. When it extended its wings, the droplet fell to the ground and made a hissing sound. Seeing that, the princess made his move. Fairy, who was known for her light mood and humor, was like a demoness carving for revenge. She released her martial spirit as well. Come, twirl. Fohhhh. A giant soothing breeze blew on the ring. A greenish figure showed its magnificence. The martial spirit was like an elven female, bafflingly beautiful and utterly alluring. Her hair and dress were made of a myriad of pretty flowers and jazzy vines. It was a nymph. 7 orbs rotated behind the back of Fairy Hololeth. She didn't speak and vanished from the ring, surprising Rima in the course of action. This ring was filled with fancy moves and mid-air sparkles. The long swordsman Zulfi Dimitri against another long swordsman Salam Ukwali. 2 geniuses from their respective origins were destined to fight. It seemed as if destiny was telling them that this world is not big enough for the 2 of them to live. They finally encountered 3rd time in a row, but there won't be any 4th time. Clang. The sword clashed as 2 figures keep attacking without delaying a second. Salam swung his sword. It was a short and precise swing. Zulfi raised his sword lightly. As both swords clashed, he gently waved his hand and parried all the weight of the sword to the other side. When he found Salam off-balanced, he stabbed his sword towards his chest. Latter quickly took a few steps back and saved himself by hair's breadth. You know a trick or 2, very good. This amount of talent is good for a countryside bum like you," uttered Salam equally. Zulfi sighed. He was bored by the continuous lame dialogues of Salam equally. "You have the sword to prove your might, save my ears, and sheath your tongue and focus on your sword's play." As Zulfi was responding, Salam stabbed. It was a very accurate and precise stab. Zulfi quickly raised his sword straight, and the tip of Salam's sword struck against the belly of Zulfi's sword. This move was well calculated. It is meant to destroy the weapon of opponents, especially the swords. But to his shock, the sword of Zulfi didn't break. Because it was a special tier sword given to him by Ezra Zephyr. Zulfi slightly moved his hand. The entire weight of Salam was on the sword, and when the slight move occurred, the tip of the sword slipped and Salam lost his balance. Zulfi didn't delay a second and stabbed back. Salam moved his head to the side. But still, his cheek and ear were slashed by Zulfi Dimitri. Fresh hot blood dripped from his newly made wounds and fell on his clothes. Ixtal Malark came at Shifa Pista with everything he had. His earth-shattering axe had everything it needs to kill its prey. The lady in armor answered every strike with a strike. Her Labries was a special grade weapon as well. In terms of body size, the Bearman was twice in size as the female werewolf. But their physical prowess was very equal. Canng. The axe and Labries collided, and both wielders' hands trembled at the impact. Their exchange was very slow compared to the fast slashes of Zulfi and Salam, but the power packed in them surpassed theirs by a large margin. If one could call Zulfi and Salam the experts and majestic swordsmen, then Ixtal and Shifa would be considered barbarians and brutes. Thick midnight black chi loomed out of Ixtal's body. The earth-shattering axe was covered in small stones to launch a deadly attack. At this point, Shifa Pista released her chi as well. Powerful dense blood-like chi materialized around her. The Labries vibrated, collaborated with the bloodish chi and originated a light crimson layer around it. The Labries was called Sky-Cracking Labries. Earth-shattering axe against Sky-Cracking Labries. This bout doesn't seem like a coincidence but a match that destiny has planned before. Acker Boldheart and Leomord Tigerian, this pair was tied in a deadlock. No one could find the weakness of the other. The warhammer in the hands of Acker faced numerous attacks from Leomord's claws, making his arms shiver from the impacts. The same goes for the youngest prince. Of striped beastum lyre, he blocked dozens of battle maniac's blows, making his bones numb. "This won't let us go anywhere," said Leomord with an unsettled tone. "Haha, I have a different opinion. I am enjoying this battle." The fight lover exchanged his opinion. Leomord smiled. "You have a gamma layer skill, don't you?" asked he, as he popped his knuckles. Plop plop plop. Hearing the pleasant sound of popping, Acker left his warhammer and tried popping his knuckles as well, but to his dissatisfaction, nothing alike that happened. "Tisk, are my dwarven hands too small to pop knuckles?" he mumbled to himself. Leomord spoke again, ignoring the silly struggle of Acker. "Do you have a gamma layer skill, battle maniac of Golconda?" Acker picked up his warhammer again and nodded his head. "I have one, just like you." "How about gamma layer skill versus gamma layer skill?" inquired the Tiger Man. "Haha, I'm in. Let's go," chuckled Acker Boldheart. His hammer raised in the sky, he switched to his hammer side of warhammer and mumbled. "Gamma layer skill, strike of a smith." A reddish-black hammer was formed and engulfed his weapon as he bolted towards his opponent. Gamma layer skill, claws of striped tiger. The yellowish chi covered his gauntlets. 2 feet large claws of chi materialized as he scampered towards Acker Boldheart. Baanng. A loud blast occurred, and the spiritual energies collided and produced a strange smoky effect. When the effect dispersed, both of the competitors stood fine. The warhammer of Acker had a huge fissure. Meanwhile, numerous cracks appeared on the gauntlet of Leomord. "You are strong," praised Acker. Leomord smiled and replied. "I have the same opinion for you. The rumors about your power did justice to you." Their Gale arms performed a dance with dual shamshirs in his hands, Emily Jomez cast spell on spell, and the blood attribute she inherited from her father gave him hope to win against the Ur. After changing from defense to offense, she managed to lock the Ur at some distance. Bloody Spears, she cast a fourth circled spell that she learnt in the Black Sun sect. According to laws, a sect member cannot participate in Spirity Bailiwick, but she was a trainee. One can only be considered a sect member if he or she can become an outer disciple at least. But with her charming methods and alluring ways, she managed to win the heart of an outer sect's elder. After warming his bed dozens of times, she squeezed this spell out of that elder. Her blood attribute was rare as well. With her intimate methods, 4th grade martial spirit and blood attribute, she could become a low-ranked inner disciple after some time. But when on one occasion, she encountered Salam Ukwali, a genius of second branch from well-powered Ukwali family of guardians of continent. Her dreams became wider and wilder. She left the sect without any notice and joined the side of Salam. The elder of Black Sun sect was furious when he lost his favorite bed heater, but after getting hands-on information about her connection with Ukwali family, he silently backed down and never pushed that matter again. After casting that fourth circled spear, 2 meters long spears of blood appeared above her. That was the limit of her power. The blood attribute is extremely powerful in big-scale wars. The sorcerers could manipulate the scattered blood of gashed bodies to their wills. But that attribute's biggest downfall was a one-on-one duel. They could only use the bloody mana stored in their mana pool. She controlled each spear with one of her hands, and shot them towards their gale arms. Whoosh whoosh. The spears were locked on the Shamshir wielder. Unlike her, Thor always worked hard to get acknowledged by his prince, Ezra Zephyr. Especially when he gained his attention after violating that were-hyena lady. The werewolves worshipped the imperial red wolf family as god vassals, and he did his best to stand on the expectations of his master. The Galearm family of werewolves were famous for its long and fast arms. He knocked the spears away with his curved swords given by none other than the Prince of Bloodfang Kingdom. But each time he knocked them away, they came back with full force. "This is irritating," he said to himself. Inside the 8th ring, their Galearms waved his hands and dashed towards Emily Jomez. The bloody spears followed him. Bang bang. Another couple of clout and his march hindered like prior times. Thor clicked his tongue in vexation. He couldn't find any gap to close the distance. Emily was able to form her third circle as well. Their martial prowess was similar. But when Thor gave a clearer look to the female sorcerer, he found that the body of Emily became paler compared to before and her hands were shuddering a bit. A thought pinched his brain. "Let's try that," he pondered. He stomped his foot on the ground and golden chi released from his body. He murmured. Beta layer skill, twin crescent. 2 curved slashes were produced by the royal crescent set of short Shamshir swords. Golden chi accompanied the attack. Emily Jomez flinched. She quickly twirled her hands, and the spears circled as well to block the incoming attack. But to her surprise, the attack was not directed towards her, but the targets of the beta layer skill were the dual bloody spears. Boom boom. 2 gigantic blasts occurred. Skill and spell hit each other. The power and level of both were equal, but the outcome was different. The spears were still intact and floated in midair. However, they were quaking terribly as if they were about to fall. Arg, Emily softly gasped. Her mana was draining at a terrible rate. Just when she was worried about the shortage of mana, she saw a flying object twirling towards her. Emily's eyes widened. It was one of the swords of their Galearms. She quickly slammed down her hands as she yelled, "Ha!" The spears were shot towards her. She quickly cried, "First circle spell, blood shield." Broom. A thin shield appeared like a wall in front of her, but it was too weak to stop the sword. Chhuuk. Half of the sword pierced the wall and the tip of royal crescent penetrated the chest part between her jubblies. At the same time, the spears appeared above her. He swung his sword with all his might. Golden chi gushed out of his body as he cried. Beta layer skill, soul crescent. The single sword in his hand released a lone crescent slash towards the incoming bloody spears. Boom. The spears were destroyed and Thor was knocked away. His arm was hit by the aftermath effects of the collision, and blood droplets dripped from his arm as he stood up. When he looked at the front, the lady with blood attribute was already on her knees. The sword was stuck on her chest. She released the last bit of her mana to create the shield. Suddenly, Thor realized something, and his eyes widened. "She is alive," he subconsciously shouted, when he was preparing to attack again as the last nail in the coffin. The mysterious voice came again. "The victor of the sixth ring is the Gale Arms. He will be sent to the next floor." With the mysterious voice, everyone's attention was diverted towards the sixth ring. With the exception of Fairy and Rima, they were too busy to kill each other. Thor looked at his master, the Prince of Bloodfang Kingdom, Ezra Zephyr. Ezra smiled at him. "Well done," he said. Whoosh. Both Thor Gale Arms and Emily Jomez vanished from the sixth ring. Emily was not dead, but she lost all the power to fight. Thus, that resulted in Thor's victory. "My subordinates are amazing, aren't they?" said Ezra Zephyr, with his eyes stuck on Victor Brownmane. The latter was in a strange state of mind. He was injured and lost in thought. But as he heard the mysterious voice, he came back to reality. Now, his eyes became different. The energy inside of them was very disparate compared to his earlier demeanor. "I shall not fall here," he mumbled. Ezra raised his eyebrows. "You all right?" "I have yet to ease my anger," said he. Ezra Zephyr, the second prince of the Brownmane Empire, opened his mouth to speak. His voice became louder as he continued. "I was too arrogant earlier and underestimated everyone. Even though my brother warned me, I ignored his warning." Ezra's eyebrows twitched. He asked, "Your brother?" Victor smiled bitterly. "Yes, my elder brother, Crown Prince Benedict Brownmane. The same genius who took your martial spirit. He is already in Holy Law sect, far beyond your reach." Ezra's emotions changed. The real enemy of his was the Crown Prince of the Brownmane Empire. The second prince was just a gift from destiny to him, to vent his anger on. Oh. What he exactly warned about? Ezra wore his signature evil grin and asked. Even though the name of the Crown Prince was enough to wake his emotions like a burning volcano, he kept his calm composure and smirked. "He warned me about everyone, especially you," he said and continued. "He called you a beast who has been sharpening his claws and fangs in secret." Now, Ezra was shocked deep inside. In a world where geniuses mocked and laughed at weak existences, the Crown Prince of the Brownmane Empire was cautious of me, even after he knew the fact that I was crippled by him and his father. Did he get the news of me recovering from my injuries? No, that is impossible. The information was well hidden. Did he assume that from his instincts? The Crown Prince is not simple like his younger brother. Ezra thought as he listened to the words of Victor. If only I had taken his advice and trained myself the way he wanted, the outcome would have been very different. But still, I have yet to reveal my trump card. Ezra sighed. Trump cards are meant to be used as a surprise attack, stupid ass. Why should I hide it when I have the power to face you head on? When Victor finished his words, something strange happened. Victor's body grew in size, the slim body of his slowly turned bulkier, his height increased, the jaw of his protruded as canines were shown inside his body. His pretty hands changed themselves with wide large paws, and sharp claws attached to the top of his fingertips. A thick brown mane grew over his neck and head. The second prince of the Brownmane Empire was morphing into his true Lionman form. Patches of blood could be seen on the floor, and dense blood allied with saliva dripped from Victor's mouth. His overall height increased and towered over the Prince of Bloodfang Kingdom. He was 7 feet 5 inches tall. His muscles bulged, thick fur covered his body, and claws, which can be considered short daggers, protruded out. His clothes above his waist were torn by his muscles, and only the remains of his well-designed royal pants were there to hide his secret parts. That was all the clothes he had. However, he was not naked. The black peak armor and other protective armaments extended their size to fit the body of the wearer. The spear also enlarged and adjusted its volume and size suitable for the now larger hands of Victor Brownmane. The morphing process was not long, it happened in mere 5 seconds. The attention of other battlefields dwindled by the sudden surge of spiritual energy. They cast their eyes on the 8th ring and gasped. The morphing form of a Lionman was not a common thing for anyone. Haha, the Prince of Lionman has revealed his trump card. The power of second prince will multiply by many folds. I only wonder if your prince can win now? Uttered Salam equally. Zulfi paid neat attention to the morphing form of Lionman. The reason for his precise gaze was not because he was afraid about the 8th ring's outcome. The main aim of his studying stare was to check the true form of Lionman tribe. They were the mortal enemies of Bloodfang Kingdom and also one of the top 10 tribes of the Beastmen race. You are scared, right? I can feel you. Even I, the genius of the Ukulele clan, envy the Beastmen because of their morphing ability. Zulfi Dimitri, who inspected Victor for long enough, shifted his attention back to Salam Ukulele and released a haughty smile. No words came out of his mouth. This act of arrogance infuriates the man on his opposite side. Salam smirked and spat towards Zulfi. Playing tough, huh? The spit fell a few inches away from Zulfi's feet. He sighed. He looked as if he is fed up with this stupid fight. How many beastmen can morph? A question was asked by Zulfi Dimitri. The smirk on Salam's face got disturbed as he heard something unexpected. What? He retorted. Zulfi placed the tip of the sword on the ground and placed both of his hands on top of the hilt. His stature changed and he exhibited a grave impression. I asked a simple question: how many beastmen can morph into their true forms? Is the genius of the Ukulele clan unaware of such trivial information? Salam's eyebrows furrowed. Every mature beastman. He answered. Very good, now another question. To which race are we werewolves belong? The same graveness was there when Zulfi asked the second question. Salam's eyes widened as he pondered. Beast, men, he stuttered somehow. He finally understood what Zulfi meant. The Prince of Bloodfang was also a beastman, and he also possessed the ability to morph into his true werewolf form. At that moment, Salam realized that the one he is fighting was also a beastman. The battle up until now was equal, none could find the upper hand. The swordplay and movements were relatively parallel. Do you understand why we are not worried about our prince? Focus on your fight. Zulfi, who was about to pick up his sword, looked into the eyes of Salam and spoke. I don't know why you are so obsessed to kill Bloodfang's people. I am incapable of reminding any incident where Bloodfang had offended guardians of continent. You are a genius, considered the best in this generation, yet you took the side of Emily Jomez and misbehaved with our prince for no reason. Zulfi Dimitri's words didn't have any hate in them, however, they were like sharp arrows piercing the numb brain of Salam. He continued. Guardians of Continent is a force that does not mingle in the affairs of states and clans. Their only purpose is to maintain peace. But you betrayed the code of guardians and sided with Emily and ordered us to return the land? Are you daring enough to order the Brownmane Empire to give back all the land of Bloodfang that they conquered? A few decades prior, all the land was owned by Bloodfang and Bloodfang only. It's a disgrace for a martial master to let his emotions run wild over a woman. Either do not follow the path of martial prowess or stick to it throughout your life until you reach the pinnacle of it. Zulfi Dimitri's speech ended. All this time, Salam Ukulele listened to him quietly with his mouth agape. Boom. A loud blast could be heard from the third ring. Shifa and Ixtal fought like two mad bulls. After the loud blow, Salam came back to his senses. He lowered his head and closed his eyes. He squeezed his eyebrows as if he was massaging his forehead to prevent the migraine. He was in deep thought. Why did he get so far for something so meager? Emily would have been his, even if he had declined to offend Ezra. Why did he underestimate the Bloodfang, despite the news that they reconquered 2 kingdoms? You are right, said Salam. He raised his head and looked at the Zulfi Dimitri. I fell for Emily the moment I saw her. I knew she was using me, yet I let her. After seeing the name of Ezra on Spirity Tablet, I even colluded with upper realm invaders to kill him. Sigh, love for lady killed the lord. Zulfi threw away his sword, and without any motion, another sword appeared in his hand, including a set of armor. The current Zulfi Dimitri had an absolute and different atmosphere around him. Don't you dare to think that I will spare you after you acknowledge the mistake, your doom is inevitable. The previous sword was not a special tier 1, I lied. Here is the sword that His Majesty bestowed upon me. The color of the sword was off-white, even the armor that had different colors connived with the intention of the sword and changed its color. I will use my special tier sword, Paladin's Pledge, to kill you, said Zulfi as his chi surged. The color of his chi was off-white, majestic and gallant like that of knights written in archaic poetries. Salam gazed at the other man, his voice refused to come out, he swung his head and the sword was thrown away. Another sword appeared in hand, a long sword. It had a slight greenish hue and a killing aura, opposite to that of Zulfi's. I will use the special tier sword as well, I will not hold back or let you kill me, I admit my wrong and will atone for them. The name of this sword is Soul Slicing Sword, I bought it from the auction. Salam replied as he held his stance. Zulfi slightly smiled. I know about this sword, the one who sold it was none other than His Majesty Prince Ezra Zephyr. This was a huge shock to Salam. What? He let out a shout. The smile vanished from Zulfi's face as he replied. You picked the wrong side. The off-white chi surged out of his body as he dashed towards Salam. At that time, some figures appeared in his mind, he laughed bitterly and mumbled. Heh, lucky bastards. Those figures were Jon Stark, Fairy Hololeth, Lionman Tigerian and Acker Boldheart. These figures chose the side of Ezra in the Spirity Bailiwick. All of a sudden, in Salam's mind, Ezra's image grew from a thorny pebble to a majestic mountain. He unleashed his scarlet chi and bolted out to meet the incoming attacker. From one side, Zulfi Dimitri held the Paladin's Pledge and marched like a shining knight, his off-white chi made him look like a hero under the light of the full moon. To his opposite, wielder of soul-slicing sword, Salam equally darted towards his opponent like a bloodthirsty warrior. The scarlet chi gave him an image of a bloodied killer, carrying the flames of a burning sun. Both powerful geniuses who could be friends, but turned into enemies, finally reached the center of the ring. Cllallanng. A loud metallic sound resounded, and the berserk chi of both fluttered and produced a tornado. A giant tornado of scarlet red and off-white chi grew wider and wider. A myriad of sword-clashing noises could be heard from within. In the fair sword of humanity, Jon Stark couldn't help and look at the side of the fifth ring with a side eye. After all, he was a sword fanatic, his love and thirst for swords far exceeded that of the two swordsmen who were battling. Inside the tornado of red and white chi, two figures continuously launched attack after attack. Up until now none of the battles looked as extreme as the one happening on the fifth ring. Carlo Aur easily killed Baron and Aur was able to overpower Emily after spending some effort. Jon Stark's opponent was on a defensive battle, his main focus was to keep Jon at bay till he exhaust his spiritual energy. Fairy and Rima's fourth ring was covered in mist, the acidic mana of blue-haired upper realm invader and nature-attributed mana of elf Patria's enchanter produced extreme mist inside the ring after the exchange of spells. No one knew what was happening inside. Shifa and Ixtal had huge and powerful blows in command to land at each other, but none of the duo unleashed their full strength. Zulfi's sword was merged with an off-white colored hue and Salam's sword engulfed itself in scarlet flames like chi. Clang, clang. Each strike emitted a spectacular effect. Zulfi moved like a noble swordsman, and every move he made was calculated and precise. Salam seemed more like an instinctual fighter who took each step by his instincts. The genius of the Ukulele clan made a full swing at Zulfi's left, packed with powerful chi. Zulfi blocked the attack, his whitish chi fought back the scarlet flames. The martial master of Bloodfang slid his right foot, gave some space to his arm joints, and with a well-calculated way swung the sword in crescent. The blow of Salam was carried from the left of Zulfi to his right and struck the air, he successfully parried the attack of Salam. The balanced went off and Salam found himself in trouble, seeing the only chance, the same type of attack was attempted by Zulfi. With a huge swing at Salam's open left side, it was impossible for current Salam to block the attack with his sword. Just when the sword was about to reach, he let go of soul-slicing sword and tilted towards his right side. He made a round flip and dodged the sword by hair's breadth. Haha, very impressive, uttered Salam as he extended his sword. The soul-slicing sword came back to his hand. Zulfi replied with a smile. You almost got me, that strike had a lot of power, parrying it was the only option I had. Let's not waste each other's time, said Salam as he jumped backwards. Come, Suro Alimua. Just when Salam murmured it, a giant figure came out from his body. Buurr. Flames fluttered madly. It was a strange thing. The martial spirit of Salam didn't have a body, it was just an embodiment of scarlet flames. 6 orbs appeared and rotated behind the back of Salam equally. Let's attack, one simple strike. With no skill and no dodges or parries, let's hit each other with a single and final bout. The one whose sword shatters first dies, said Salam as he smirked, but this time, his smirk wasn't evil. The smile on Zulfi's face vanished, and he closed his eyes. Come out, martial knight. A human frame appeared, its entire body was covered in beautiful and well-designed armor. The helmet was unique and made in a way that not even the eyes of that martial spirit could be seen. The blinding light that the martial spirit of Zulfi emitted was beyond any definition. It felt as if this martial spirit belonged to an ancient era and its strength has decayed by 100-folds. For those who were witnessing from outside, the storm was expanding more and more. It already covered the 300 radius meter. Both swordsmen moved, fast as lightning. Bokong. A strange and destructive sound of clash echoed Paladin's pledge versus soul-slicing sword, 2 special tier swords against each other. Both wielders poured every bit of strength and chi into the bout. The tornado was enlarging at an alarming rate. Now, the bloodlusting pair of 2 women in the 4th ring looked at the strange and powerful tornado. Ezra Zephyr, John Stark, Carl and every other were forced to look at the abnormal changes in the 5th ring. 400, 550, 720, 1000. The tornado reached a 1-kilometer radius. Boom! A humongous explosion, and the tornado dispersed within the blink of an eye. A man in off-white armor stood at the center. In front of him was a half-broken sword and a torso-less body. Ha! Ha! Huh! That man panted like a horse who had run for a whole day in a burning desert. He sheathed his sword and turned his head towards the 8th ring, where Ezra Zephyr was located. Ding, thing, ting. The other half of the soul-slicing sword fell from the sky, just when the sound of the fallen sword ended. Bannng. The torso of Salam equally fell on the ground as well. Zulfi's eyes widened when he saw the face of the man he killed. The genius of the Ukulele clan had a satisfied smile on his face. Zulfi looked at the broken sword that fell from the sky, the soul-slicing sword of a dead genius. Looking at it, he recalled something. When Ezra Zephyr and their Gale arms returned from the auction, the prince went to his tent while they shared the encounter they faced with others. Who is this Salam Ukulele? How dare he belittle our king? And you left him alive? Uttered Zulfi. The swordsman was enraged. The one who looked more dignified and noble amongst all the subordinates of Bloodfang Kingdom was Zulfi Dimitri. His speaking manner, his attire, and the way he behaved resembled that of nobility. However, Zulfi Dimitri belonged to a commoner family of the werewolf tribe. He is a genius from Guardians of Continent. We cannot act recklessly, said the smartest one in all. Tell me. Am I able to assassinate him? This time Zulfi was serious when he asked that question. Gale Arms looked at the handsome martial master. He sighed and replied. You both are equal in almost everything. Zulfi squinted his eyebrows and questioned. What do you mean? He took the words of as disrespect. The latter shook his head. Don't take me wrong, my words were directed to your individuality. He is handsome, he got a good sense of dressing, and he possesses a strange charisma around him like you. And the most important thing, he is a swordsman. See, everything is almost the same. Apart from the difference in physical appearance, both of you are more or less like twins, haha. He laughed at the end. Enough. I won't forgive you for combining me with someone who misbehaved with His Majesty. Don't beat around the bush and tell me if I can assassinate him or not. Zulfi asked again. He was more furious than before. It's a conditional question. If you use your special tier weapon, then yes, you can. But, if he is the one who bought His Majesty's soul-slicing sword, then no, you won't be able to assassinate him. His Majesty's soul-slicing sword? Zulfi was confused. His Majesty sold one of the special tier swords and a broken armor. The name of the sword was Soul-Slicing Sword. What? Zulfi cried. His Majesty sold a special tier sword. Such treasure. Does His Majesty need spiritual crystals for something? No, stupid, His Majesty already has an endless amount of treasure. He must have some other plans. Every member of Bloodfang had different thoughts, but none of them doubted the prince. Everyone assumed the reason they find suitable. Calm down. At that point, the voice came from the prince's tent. It was the weakest sword I had in the special tier category, and the one Zulfi possessed is the strongest. The words of Ezra Zephyr ended the topic. Zulfi knew that soul-slicing sword is weaker than Paladin's pledge and accepted the one-strike killing blow. He turned his eyes from the sword to the fallen upper half of Salam Yukwali. He recalled the words of the Ergale arms, and a strange sadness appeared in his eyes. We could have been good friends, murmured the swordsman of Bloodfang Kingdom as he looked away. It was true that a genius can understand another genius. The last image of Salam in his head was very different from the image he had about him in Spirity Bailiwick. In the final moments, the genius of the Yukwali clan's second branch, Salam Yukwali, showed a side of integrity. He accepted his wrongdoings and blamed himself for the mistake and sheer crime of treason he had committed. He fought Zulfi with everything he got. Each clash of swords exchanged the thoughts of competitors with each other. In a short period of time, no one would believe, but the duo almost learned everything about each other's nature. Soon, the mysterious voice resounded in the vast space where colossal rings were firmly built. The winner of the fifth ring is Zulfi Dimitri. He will be teleported to the next round. With that, the mysterious voice ended the announcement. A light encircled Zulfi Dimitri. The man quickly looked at Ezra Zephyr, bent one knee and got teleported into the kneeling posture. The fights on other rings continued. Ixtal Malark and Shifa Pista were both panting. There were numerous wounds on their bodies, but Ixtal looked more injured than the lady werewolf in full armor. The fight was not fancy like that of the fifth ring, nor it was a strategic one that happened in the sixth ring. It was a contest of bruteness and sturdiness. Each big swing was sluggish, but packed with enormous physical strength. They used less of their spiritual energy and more of their physical strength, as if it was a competition between two tribes of beastmen raced to decide which one is more beastly. Ixtal held on the earth-shattering axe in his right hand, and Shifa Pista also held the sky-cracking labrys in her right grip. Both at the same time moved, and as they came close, a huge vertical blow. Boonng. With a metallic blast, both axe and labrys were knocked away but were still in the grip of their wielders. Thump, thump. At the same time, both beastmen stomped their feet to regain their balance and threw left punch at each other. Ixtal punch, which has a longer reach than Shifa's, arrived at the helmet of Shifa Pista, and Bangng. The lady in armor flew away. She flipped in midair to land on her feet. The moment her feet hit the ground, she dashed forward. Bangng. With a loud bang, the fist of Shifa hit the abdomen of Bearman as he was blown away by the impact. Their combat power was kind of similar, which puzzled Ixtal Malark, he pondered. In terms of raw power, the only tribe that can rival Bearmen are Tigermen tribe and Lionman tribe, since when Werewolf tribe possess such raw power. Or, it's that this individual is unique. Yes, that should be the only possible answer. Their blows were parallel to each other. Their weapons had the same might in them. Unlike the soul-slicing sword, the weapon of Bearman earth-shattering axe was a top special tier armament. The only difference was the armor. The full body armor of Shifa was a complete set of unique tier. The defense of female werewolf was higher than the Bearman. At that moment, the spiritual energy started to flutter around Ixtal Malark. His body began to enlarge, and the muscles he had bulged into thick boulders. His height reached 8 feet, and the hair on his body grew a lot in a mere moment. Groowwwwll. Ixtal Malark morphed into his true bearman form. The calmness on Shifa's face disappeared, and she knew that she will be in trouble if she neglected. She wanted to morph too, but it was not easy for werewolves. Although they are in the top 10 tribes of beast men, their power is not weaker than Lionman or Tigerman. Some archaic records even said that the werewolves ATR species that rivaled the power of ancient beastmen tribes such as Dragonkans and Mammoth men. However, the might of werewolves declined a lot for some uncertain reasons, and they could no longer morph whenever they wish. Only extreme emotion can trigger the morph, and after morphing into werewolf form, they will lose their sanity. Only Red Wolf Imperial family could morph into the werewolf form with their mental stability intact. King of Bloodfang Kingdom, Ezra Zephyr tried to teach the methods to control this powerful ability, but out of thousands of martial masters, only 2 were able to learn it. Just when she was in deep thought of what to do, the bearman reached the lady werewolf with a dash. The earth-shattering axe in his hand grew according to his size. In front of 8 feet large bulky bearman, the 5 feet 11 inches feet female in armor resembled the infamous story of Teak Tree and Herb. The arm of bearman moved, and Shifa quickly raised her labries to block. Bam. The axe was aimed at her neck, but it hit the rod of sky-cracking labries. The sheer power ran through the bones of Shifa Pista. What is this power? Her entire body shook tremendously, and in the next moment, her feet left the ground. Huh. She was tossed away. If one had to describe the scene on Third Ring, he would say that the bearman named Ixtal Malark threw a pebble in far. That was how Shifa Pista was blown away by the merciless might of bearman. Tung tung tung. The female werewolf skirred and rolled countless times before she stopped afar. Her entire body was trembling in sheer pain. Arg cough, she coughed blood, and the helmet that only revealed her eyes was dripping reddish droplets. Her arms were shattered, her body was battered, and her fingertips were tattered. Damn it. I can't lose, she said to herself. The martial master Shifa of proud female warriors of the Pista family couldn't swallow this bitter pill. She clearly saw how Thur and Zulfi defeated their opponents and majestically moved to the upper floor in front of His Highness Ezra Zephyr. Although she rarely talked with the prince, she was still a resident of Bloodfang and a werewolf. She worshipped Red Wolf family like the rest of the werewolf tribe. How could she show the prince of Bloodfang the weak side of her? Even the king of Bloodfang Ezra Zephyr recognized the Pista tribe as brave female warriors of Bloodfang. As she was amidst the thought, a blurry shadow appeared in the sky. The lifeless Shifa Pista squinted her eyes, her pupils contracting as she used every bit of her chi to move away. Boom. The gigantic body of Ixtal Malark landed like a falling meteor. Shifa Pista dodged by the hair's breadth, or else she would have become a lump of minced meat. She gathered her strength to stand up. The previous strike fractured her arms, and the collision from the fall broke her ribs. Her armor was damaged as well. The only thing that was in the same condition was her sky-cracking labries. Oh God, Fenris Sulfur, have mercy on me, she prayed in her heart as she stood on her feet. But the bearman was not someone who shows kindness. A quick front kick on the breast of Shifa Pista. Bam. Just like a pebble thrown in a calm lake, she bounced dozens of times before stopping. Her condition worsened way more than anyone can imagine. Her ribcage was broken, and her breast tissues were torn by that kick. Tears appeared in her eyes. Morph, she prayed as she cried. It was a silent wail. Regardless of what she does, she couldn't ignite the morphing. She was on the verge of death, and the emotions were still not enough for her to morph. What else was required to ignite the hidden power? A secret technique that she was unaware of, or anything else? Clop, clop, clop. She could hear the sound of stomping footsteps getting closer and closer to her. She tried her best to stand, but couldn't. She wriggled her legs and continued to move, but couldn't get anywhere far. She moved slowly. God Fenrisulf, please, help me. She was still praying to the god of werewolves for a miracle. Thuudd. A sudden loud cracking noise resounded, "Ayaha!" The lady in destroyed armor cried in agony. Her entire face was bloodied, her mouth and nose bled like a fountain, her brown hairs touched the ground of the ring, and blood crawled from her mouth to her forehead and fell. Ixtal was holding her upside down, he softly kicked her. "You are not dead yet?" He knew that she was alive and conscious, otherwise the mysterious voice would have intervened. "Good, I can vent my anger a bit more," said Ixtal as he swung his arm. "Baanggg." He slammed her on the ground, her head cracked, and blood oozed out. Just when her sight was getting darker and darker, she heard a voice. "Fight back." Her eyes opened a bit. What was that? She thought. "Don't disgrace the name of Bloodfang, Shifa." "Huh. Bloodfang. It's my kingdom. Does my kingdom need me? Whose voice is that?" She was in a strange stage. "Shifa, you are a werewolf. Morph, I, Ezra Zephyr, order you." This time, the voice came like a rumble of thunder, she heard each and every word clearly. "Batum, batum, batum." Her heartbeat raised. "Ayaha," she howled like a barbarian, scarlet chi gushed out of her body. "Ayawaher," a loud painful cry came out of half-dead Shifa Pista. A wave of terrifying scarlet chi emerged out of her body, startling Ixtal Malark. He left the tattered leg of the lady and jumped dozens of meters away. Ixtal Malark's eyes widened as he looked at the girl in armor, she started to change. Her body began to change, her hands grew, and normal fingers turned into long stick-like claws. The change added a foot to her height, she was now 6 feet 11 inches tall, and the armor was torn and thrown away by her. Her brownish body stood tall, saliva and blood mixed and fell on the ground. Crack, clack, crock. The shattered bones started to reconnect, it felt like she was moving through the process of resurrection. AWOHSHOO. A battle howl released from the bottom of her guts, no cloth was present on her body to bury her parts. Her body was different, her chest lacked any hair. However, her legs, arms, head and back had thick rough hairs. Her melons were visible, however, nobody cared about them at that moment. The bearman could sniff the smell of danger. Shifa looked at the 8th ring, the Prince of Bloodfang Kingdom was looking at her with a smile. Her gaze slightly landed at the feet and found that the big golden-brown lion man was beneath his left foot. Ezra waved his hand, and the lady werewolf shifted her focus onto her opponent. "You finally morphed, very good. It seems your body recovered as well," said Ixtal Malark. Be that as it may, contrary to his tone, he was bewildered at the marvel of her morphing. Since when morphing heals fissures and fixes broken bones, this was alien knowledge even for someone like Ixtal Malark, who was nominated as the next king of the Bearman tribe. Apart from the shock, there was not the slightest hint of fear on the face of the bulky bearman. Grrrr. The naked werewolf bared her fangs at the bearman, she growled as her mouth foamed. Her brown eyes and expanded pupils had a maniacal impression. Her body was wide and firm, she looked like a tall dwarf. Despite her height of 6 feet 11 inches, the body of hers was exceptionally wide. She could be considered a bearman of werewolves. "That's the female of the Shifa family," pondered the Prince of Bloodfang Kingdom. Prior to the preparation to join Spirity Bailiwick, Ezra Zephyr read almost every tribe present in the Bloodfang Kingdom as well as some of the extinct tribes whose record was intact. There were a few strange tribes, and amongst them was the Pista family. A small family of female werewolves, they were not extremely beautiful, but their body was something that many men desired. Slim, sexy, and firm, what confused the men was the unimaginable might they had despite their petite figures. They used axes, labrises, and hammers as their weapons. Ezra learned that Pista is one of the ancient tribes, and his eyes widened. This clan piqued his interest because his father praised the Pista family when Shifa came to have her armament. When he read about them, he found that the real strength of the Pista family lies in their morphed form. Unlike other werewolf families, whose males are stronger than females, this family was the opposite. The female warriors find a strong male to mate, and every male child born will be given to the father, and the female child will be raised by the mother and tribe. The strange thing was the fact that the female child was around 5 times more powerful than the male child. The prince squinted his eyes. Thus family is mysterious. Is it from the upper realm, like my red wolf family? A question was raised in his mind. Arf, you bastard. A voice came from below. Ezra looked at his foot, under which the second prince of Brown Man laid in his morph form. Oops, I apologize, Your Majesty. I was in a deep ponder and inserted unnecessary force, without even knowing. Is Your Majesty okay with the current pressing power? Should I adjust a bit, Your Majesty? Victor was not in pain, but he was disgusting himself at that moment. His eyes were filled with tears as he said, "Please, don't disrespect me." Ixtal didn't hesitate and stepped forward, the earth-shattering axe in his hand gathered strange small earth-like matter it could find and developed an additional long and strong edge. His eyes met the eyes of Shifa Pista. "Let's see what a werewolf's morph form is capable of," he said as he was getting more and more curious. The features of the morphed werewolf that he read weren't applied here. She was a lot bulkier than a female werewolf should be. Grrrr, roar, her. She growled like a mad dog, her fingers spread, and from far away, the sky-cracking labries responded. Wossh. With unbelievable speed, the weapon of Shifa Pista came to her hand. As soon as she got the labries, she howled. Awoo. The labries was in her one hand, she swung it wildly. No technique or skill was there, just sheer beastly instincts. The bearman from Striped Beast Empire was not a pushover. He gripped the axe tighter and moved his arm to meet the blow of the werewolf. Clanng. The spiritual energy of both sides spread like crazy, blood-red chi against midnight black chi. The arms of Bearman bulged, and his veins popped out as he put all of his physical strength into that bout. The same thing was happening with the lady werewolf. Shifa was growling, and her sharp teeth could be seen from far away. Her large and thick arms had tons of muscles on them, and her breast, which changed from size 30 to 40 during morphing, hang on her chest like 2 immovable boulders. Grrrr, werewolf growled. Bannng. One side lost, the one with superiority in might stood while the other was blown away. Ixtal Malark stood proud on the ring. The one who lost in might and knocked away was Shifa Pista. She dashed again, to attack, and the same thing repeated. Bang bong bong. It was already the 74th time, and regardless of what happened, she came at him like a mad ferocious dog. Bannng. She was knocked away, and now Ixtal knew his opponent was not a maniac or anything. Her every attack had an extreme level of killing intent and massive power. He tried to kill her many times, but he couldn't think of a way to dodge her deadly attack. The only possible way for him was to face her strike head-on and shatter her wrists by the impact. But for some unknown reason, she became crazier and crazier as time passed. The foam was dripping down her jaws, her strange troubling growl didn't stop for a second. Rawwwr, she went again. Clanng. Labries against axe, a collision of powerful lights. What? Ixtal was shocked. Bannng. The 75th blow knocked the giant bearman away, his arms started to shake. How is this possible? Roar, the lady werewolf was already at his side. Damn it. He raised his axe, but the speed displayed by Shifa was terrifying. She was holding the sky-cracking labries in 2 hands, the bearman blocked the attack, and his one hand held the axe. But the might packed behind labries was something else. Crrrraack. Boom. The lady werewolf didn't dodge and it hit her in the chest. She flew away from the impact and fell on the ground with an explosive sound. Ugh, my arm. Is she made of steel? He felt as if his fist hit a gigantic mountain. Ixtal was lost for words. He couldn't understand why the werewolf had higher strength than the bearman. This is beyond the law and nature of species, no. Wolf is stronger than a bear when compared in might. The werewolf finally stood, and she walked ahead. She limped. Ixtal caught that. She is injured? He asked himself. The walk of the werewolf stopped, and her growling dimmed a bit. The bearman stood. He felt pain in one arm, but he held the axe with his other. Suddenly, Ixtal found something strange. Shifa Pista raised the sky-cracking labries in the sky. Blood like red chi gushed out of her body as she was about to launch a skill. This power? It's a gamma layer skill? The injured Ixtal Malark became terrified. He had a lot of spiritual energy left in his body. But his red arm was fractured. Damn it, only a similar power can stop the gamma layer skill, murmured Ixtal Malark as he was about to gather the spiritual energy around him. Shifa had her eyes closed. The current self of her was completely different from her previous savage form. Damn it, only a similar power can stop the gamma layer skill, murmured Ixtal Malark as he was about to gather the spiritual energy around him. Shifa had her eyes closed. The current self of her was completely different from her previous savage form. Blood red chi flooded out of her body like a tsunami. Her labries was in the sky, high and mighty as it seemed. The closed eyes were opened as she murmured something. Grower. Nobody knew what she said except a certain individual who loved to smirk. Seeing that, her opponent, Ixtal Malark of the Bearman tribe, unleashed his gamma layer skill as well. Dark Wheel of Death. He yelled. He wanted Shifa to remember each word of the skill that will end her life. A giant black-colored wheel appeared above the Bearman. His spiritual energy entered into that wheel at eye-catching speed. The giant blackish ring shook violently for a moment, before suddenly disappearing a split second later. It was too fast to be seen by the naked eye. The only things everyone was able to observe were space distortion and a flash of blackness. As smoke swept past, the ground below dried up and crumbled. In the face of such a devastating attack, everyone would feel their scalps turn numb. It was the same skill attack that he launched on Ezra Zephyr, but to his fortune, his opponent is not that abnormal entity Ezra Zephyr. Shifa Pista stood there in utter calmness as if she was not affected by an incoming attack. Soon, a head formed in front of his chest. It sucked the entirety of the spiritual energy that she released. The shapeless face slowly formed a face, and a wolf's head was designed. The size of the head was equal to the size of Shifa's current boobs, or maybe a slightly bigger one. As Dark Wheel of Death came closer, a terrifying howl was released by the boob-sized head of the wolf. AWWWO. An annoying and deadly howl. As soon as the howl came, the head, which was made of pure blood spiritual energy, dashed forward. The speed of it was worth mentioning. Imagine a foundation establishment stage expert throwing a spear, or a sixth-circled sorcerer with air attribute shooting an arrow. That was how fast the head of the wolf went towards the Dark Wheel of Death. Soon, the large scary ring, engulfed in nothing but darkness, clashed against the mediocre-looking boob-sized wolf head. Awoo boom. An explosion after an ear-piercing howl occurred in the vicinity, but surprisingly, it was not a loud one. Out of a sudden, the smoke caused by the collision was pierced by something. Ixtal Malark's eyes widened. The thing that penetrated the smoke was none other than that strange wolf head. Before the Bearman could control the situation, the head of the wolf appeared. Ixtal Malark swung his axe in a dominating manner, as soon as both different things hit each other. AWWWO. A third loud howl resounded and the head of the wolf vanished. For a few moments, nothing happened. However, at the very next second, the body of the giant Bearman started to shake. The earth-shattering axe fell from his hand and blood oozed out from his ears, nose, eyes, and his mouth. Damn. The Bearman fell down with zero pizzazz left in his life. His body slowly transformed into his human form. The bright future ruler of Bearman tribe fell in the deadly battle of Spirity Tower. The werewolf lady fell on her knees as well. Blood gushed out of her mouth, her physique was changed as well, and she came back to her human form. Her entire body was naked. Unlike her previous ugly appearance, she was a real beauty. Slightly pumped chest, small nipples, long neck, slender waist, and those good-build muscles. There were numerous bruises on her body, a big circle bruise on her chest, indicating that a devastating kick from Bearman landed there. She tried to stand up, but couldn't. Within the next second, she fell unconscious on the ground. Soon, the mysterious voice appeared. The winner of the 5th ring is Shifa Pista. The winner will be sent to the next round. The voice announced. Out of the first 4 matches, 3 were won by Bloodfang Kingdom. Now, none of the genius would ever belittle the kingdom of Bloodfang when the news will leak out. 8th ring. The Prince of Bloodfang Kingdom mumbled. Gamma layer skill, murdering hell. The strange title he uttered was the name of the skill that Shifa Pista unleashed. A strong and powerful skill that lacks the destructive power, unlike majority of skills that had devastating effects on the surroundings. This skill was unique. It was based on mental power. The skill would release a small head of a mysterious wolf. The wolf would target one opponent and destroy every obstacle it faces, before reaching the target. It will let go of a wild and piercing howl that would hit the mind and mental strength of the target. If the mental power isn't stronger than the skill, the outcome would be the death of the target. Ezra Zephyr had a satisfied look in his eyes. He raised his leg. A giant figure that was trapped bolted away, and appeared 500 meters away from him. Seeing the feared Lionman, Ezra spoke with a devilish smirk on his face. My, your majesty. Where were you all this time? I looked for you everywhere. I looked at my left, I looked at my right, and I even searched for you in the sky above my head. The only thing I didn't check was the place beneath my feet. Your majesty. Where were you? The creepy grin terrorized Victor Brownmane. Don't get closer, no. Don't. Some moments ago. When Victor Brownmane morphed into his Lionman form, brilliant red chi engulfed him. He looked dominant and majestic, unwavering. He came closer and closer to the Prince of Bloodfang as if he knew that the other man will die. When he was a foot away and about to speak something. Thasha. An earth-shaking slap landed on his cheek. The proud Lionman was slammed away, and he flew like a thrown rock. Huh? What was that? He shook his head, which was still affected by the slap. When he tried to raise his body up. Bam. A stomp came at his head, nailing him to the ground. Victor Brownmane was lost for words. The proud Lionman tribe, who was considered as current #1 tribe by some in the Beastmen race, was so one-sidedly beaten by a same-stage expert, not to mention in morph form. This was more than enough shame for the proud and haughty second prince to die 1,000 times, you bastard! He roared. But regardless of how hard he tried, he couldn't raise the leg on his head. I heard few great things about Lionmen, said Ezra Zephyr. Amongst them, the first one was that the might of Lionmen rivals the dragons. Haha, that was nothing more than bullshit. I never faced a dragon, but I can bet my bloodline that they won't be a weak ass like you. Ezra Zephyr raised his leg again, and Victor Brownmane roared. RRAAWWWWR. The sharp claws protruded and were aimed at Ezra's neck, with killing intent in them. The prince opened his palm, and he grabbed the claws of the morphed Lionman with his fingers. Another myth was, Lionman could tear the strongest metal with their claws. As Ezra finished his words, he squeezed the knuckles of Victor Brownman. The second prince roared in pain. The werewolf prince took out his short sword and inserted the tip of Efsa into the claw of Lionman. Bastard! Victor cried in pain. The short sword slowly crawled and pierced the fingertips and cleanly divided the claw into 2. After finishing the first finger, the prince moved to another. Arf, Rayor, stop. Ah! The second prince cried. He never felt this much pain in his entire life. Soon, all 5 claws were cut in half by the sharp sword Efsa. Ezra Zephyr sighed in disappointment. Another shitty rumor, moving to the next one. There were numerous tortures in different ways. All the rumors which hyped the name of Lionman were viciously shattered by Ezra Zephyr in front of the proud Victor Brownmane. The mental exhaustion was far crueler than the physical pain he endured. With each torture, Ezra carefully explained and proved a rumor about Lionmen wrong. The self-belief of Victor Brownmane was like glass that fell from the mountain, shattering into numerous parts. Please, stop. Your Majesty, did you say something? he asked as he bent his back and moved his ear closer. Victor Brownmane trembled. Please, spare me. Ezra's eyes widened, his heartbeat raised, and he felt as if he achieved a milestone. A contented smile decorated his face. At the same time, he heard a loud banging sound. He turned his head and saw Ixtal Malark in his morph form, beating the shit out of Shifa Pista. Victor was shaking in fear as Ezra came closer. In the 8th ring, vast big square ground. 2 people were present, the smaller one was closing the distance, while the bigger one was creating it. Your Majesty, why are you afraid? We are old acquaintances, even our parents are friends, very close friends, said Ezra menacingly as he stepped towards the Lionman Prince, Victor Brownmane. Stay away, my BR. Brother will not spare you. Victor stuttered in fear. Oh, your brother. Crown Prince Benedict Brownmane, are you perhaps referring to that thief? Said Ezra. He destroyed the genius Victor Brownmane, the proud prince who even called himself superior to his elder brother, was now in a devastating form. He was waiting and praying for a miracle. He tried to surrender many times, but the mysterious voice never responded. As per the rules, a defeat will be counted if one dies or loses the strength to fight. Victor doesn't lose the strength, but he lost the will to fight. Both were 2 different things. Of a sudden, the slow-walking prince of werewolves dashed towards the lion man. Bastard, go away. He waved his hand, attempting to slash the chest of Ezra Zephyr. The latter dodged the attack, but he was forced to take a few steps back. The spiritual energy that Victor released was terrifying, even the prince of werewolves was shocked. It's true, a cornered rat can bite the cat. He mumbled with a smile on his face. Victor was baffled, he was puzzled beyond his limit. He couldn't adjust to the fact that Ezra could destroy him in such an overpowering manner. How is this possible? He asked himself multiple times. Ezra Zephyr was terrifying since the beginning. He fought those puppets for 5 years, and his combat mastery surpassed almost everyone on the continent. However, there are some exceptions. Jon Stark destroyed his beauty for the sake of sword supremacy, and Aker Boldheart, who traveled kingdoms to fight genius opponents with his axe hammer. But still, Ezra Zephyr is superior to them. He fought for survival and learned from those who are genius in the upper realm. The difference is like land and sky. Ezra not only learned how to defend and parry, but he also found the counter to those techniques. He even had to face those monsters with bare hands. No being in the lower realm is trained like the man called Ezra Zephyr. Currently, after absorbing the soul of Carlo Aur and devouring his mythical martial spirit, Ezra reached new realms. The Fenrir reached grade 7 and his chaos force became more terrifying, to a degree that even he was shocked. Victor's Lionman morph form has physically equal strength, but mastery in martial arts is not a trivial thing. The Atrocious Werewolf Prince could easily play with this genius prince who lived his life in luxury. He grabbed the thick arm of Lionman, and as soon as he touched the arm, chaos force came into play. Crackle. A thunderous noise and a single bolt of black lightning crawled out of Ezra's body and moved his way towards the Lionman. The moment it touched the skin of Lionman, the skin was instantly torn apart in a disgusting way. Ergurg, he roared in pain. The bolt slowly moved on his arm. Wherever it touched, the muscles were twisted, the skin incised itself, and the bones looked as if they were pulverized. Soon the bolt passed through his entire arm. Ezra controlled his force and moved it slowly. The thick arm of Victor Brownmane now looked like a rotten, mutilated piece of meat and bones. Dad, save me. I surrender. He yelled in desperation. Never ever in his entire life had he dreamt that he will suffer such torture. Every spiritual energy is divided into 3 forms: chi, mana, and force. Chi is used by cultivators in chi core, mana is formed in a sorcerer's mana pool, while force is a type solely used by martial animals. It is stored and refined in the animal core. The spiritual energy has different properties and attributes. If there are 10 spiritual energies with the attribute of fire, then all 10 fires would be different to each other. Ezra's chaos force is something that Fenrir said will terrorize the upper realm. It has a bit of every attribute within it, with countless properties merged, but the main three properties of chaos force are twist, rive and grind. Such a cruel and monstrous spiritual energy. The Prince of Bloodfang Kingdom didn't pay any attention to his pleadings and kept on tormenting him. An hour later, the fights in every ring ended. In the second ring, Jon Stark was panting wildly, his left arm was crushed, and his head was bleeding. The left arm, including the ribs, was shattered by golems made by Carl. On the other hand, Carl was cut into two parts, the rest of his body didn't receive any wounds. It looked as if he was killed by a single strike. That was the might of Jon Stark, a genius worth praising. He found one big gap to close in, and that was the end of the upper realm invader named Carl. The winner of the second ring is Jon Stark, he will be sent to the next floor. Mysterious voice played its role. Two females who both lost their loved ones were ready to die. The strange acidic mist covered the entire ring. Inside of it, a lady was sitting on her butt. More than half of her green and majestic hairs were burnt, and her entire body was bubbling up. The cloths melted and threads were merged in her body. It looked like she just came out of a boiling volcano. That lady was none other than the enchantress of Elfpatria, princess of the Elven Empire, Fairy Hololeth. Her current look was totally opposite to her previous #1 beauty. She paid a huge price in the fight. The acidic mana of Rima burnt her, and she changed from enchantress to the witch. Inside the same fourth ring, there was a huge tree, around 100 meters tall. In the center of that tree was another lady, her entire body was covered in tree branches. The vines penetrated her skin and entered her veins, every last bit of blood sucked out. The horror on her face told the tale that she suffered a tragic death. Her blue clothes proved that she was the other upper realm invader, Rima. However, there were no blue hairs on her head, she was the perfect definition of a mummy. Fourth ring winner is Fairy Hololeth, she will be sent to the next floor. Aker Boldheart was in numerous deadly wounds, his chest was torn open, and the fresh blood was still oozing from it. He was laying on his back, his eyes were closed, and he was at the death door. In the same ring, the Tigerman Prince was unconscious. There was a giant cut that extended from his shoulder to his abdomen, he was a goner as well. The winner of the seventh ring is Aker Boldheart, he will be sent to the next floor. All the matches ended, and the only ring which was left was the very last ring at the end. Ezra looked at the rings with joy. Everyone knew Ezra would win, but nobody expected him to extend the fight and torture. The way Carlo Aur majestically ended his fight, he didn't humiliate his opponent and killed him in a serious manner. Compared to him, Ezra's method was just atrocious. The prince clicked his tongue in a little regret. TSK, the two managed to live. He raised his hand. Soul absorption spells. Four whitish circles were formed around the four dead bodies, Carl in second ring, Rima in fourth ring, Salim Yukwali in fifth, and Ixtal Malark in sixth ring. Boom. Four balls of nature color light emerged out of their body. The balls that came out of Rima and Carl were bigger than the soul balls emitted out of Salim and Ixtal. As soon as the balls reached out and went inside Ezra Zephyr's chest, a huge wave of energy was released. Ah! So refreshing. His body was filled with an energy unlike other martial masters. Ezra's focus of strength was both cultivating or meditating. Although he could do both, he was a cultivator as well as a sorcerer, but the biggest source of his increasing strength was his soul-devouring power. He could devour souls, and can utilize them to increase the spiritual energy in his animal core like martial animals. After consuming the souls of all dead, he felt as if his power was increased twice. Especially the souls of Rima and Carl, surprisingly, their souls were stronger than Rollo's soul. He was in the initial first level of the core formation stage and was a little away from the middle first level. Most of the boost came from Carl and Rima's soul. Their body and soul were nurtured by numerous resources. Feeling this power, Ezra smiled when he thought about the taste of Carlo's delicious soul. However, the haughty prince of werewolves neglected the fact that Carlo is in a different league. Fenrir caught this emotion of Ezra. He knew that his host was underestimating the host of Raja Indrapadra, but he remained silent until he was called. Fenrir, devour. The monstrous wolf of Norse came out, blackness started to surge and black thundering lightning crackled everywhere around the giant mountain. BBBZZZZZYYUUUU. At the same time, a strange light came out of the sky and surrounded all the rings. The light was dominating and mysterious. Fenrir flinched as well as Ezra, but the light only surrounded the rings and did no harm to them. The large bear engulfed in midnight thick black spiritual energy came out of Ixtal Malarka's body. It growled in anger, but when it came near the black hole in Fenrir's mouth, he was sucked in. After that, the body of Salim equally shook. The fire-based scarlet chi unwillingly left the body of his host and entered the mouth of the monstrous wolf of Norse. The third spirit to come out was the martial spirit of Rima, the acidic bird, Zaruma. Screehhh. It let out a loud cry as soon as she was forced out of her host by Fenrir's devouring power. The two heads of Zaruma looked at Fenrir and its wings flapped. She was coming to attack Fenrir. "Stop the struggle, trash," said Fenrir. He dashed and bit the head of Zaruma. When one of the heads was within his jaws, he swung his head and slammed the bird on the ground. He placed the paw on its body and ripped off the head. With that, the remaining acidic bird Zaruma, the 7th grade martial spirit, was devoured as well. After her turn, 2 bodies remained, Carl and Baron. A golem-made martial spirit came out of Carl and slowly moved. It didn't use any violence, as if it already knew the outcome. Behind the 7th grade golem came a spear. It was Baron's 6th grade martial spirit, Reverent Light Spear. Both went inside the black hole, and after devouring them, the flashes of lightning became wild. AWWWWOOO. Fenrir let out a howl, an ear-deafening howl. The power of his spiritual energy raised. If he landed the same bolt that he landed earlier on Victor, his entire arm would explode. One can increase the quantity of spiritual energy by cultivating and meditating, but the quality of spiritual energy is constant unless you have some mythical herbs or pills to strengthen the martial spirit. However, the young werewolf has the unique ability to increase quality and quantity by devouring. It can be considered a cheap power. After devouring everything, Ezra Zephyr could sense the intimidating power within his body. Not just him, but the dead soldiers inside his body also improved. Mad God Bear and Razor Pearl Eagle were empowered and cried in satisfaction. The spiritual energy fluctuation ended and he looked at his side. "Your Majesty, sorry for making you wait." The nasty grin appeared on his face once again. Victor Brownmane trembled. "Monster. Why, you are a monster." The power shown by Ezra Zephyr doesn't belong to the lower realm. Simply put, it was unheard of. All 4 limbs of Lionman were twisted and destroyed in different ways. The common thing was they looked heinous now. "Time to part our ways, Your Majesty," said Ezra. He was waiting for the results of the rest of the rings so he could harvest. After accomplishing his mission, he wanted to enjoy the last meal. Soul absorption. He cast the spell. This was a unique spell that Ezra created with the help of Fenrir's teaching. He couldn't figure out the exact circles this spell needed and only had a vague guess. It was a strange spell, and Fenrir stayed quiet when Ezra asked him. The circle formed and the soul started to leave the body of Brownmane Empire's 2nd prince. He cried, but no voice came out of his mouth. Only his suffering face and the river of tears flowing from his eyes showed that he was in pain. During the torture earlier, Ezra ran a bolt of chaotic lightning onto his throat. Destroying the entire neck and vocals, only made sure that he could breathe. Soon, the soul came out in the form of a ball and went into the chest of Ezra. Fenrir opened his mouth to devour the martial spirit. "Roarrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr Both Fenrir and Ezra retorted to the warning of the lion, respectively. The lion couldn't resist the suction force and got itself devoured. Ezra didn't smile in satisfaction, instead, he was looking at the dead Victor Bronmain in quietness. He felt like something is missing, and even after killing him in the worst way possible, he was not satisfied at all. Why my anger hasn't decreased a bit, it feels like I killed a wrong person. He mumbled. Focus, boy. Brownmane Empire is the last thing you should be worrying about. Spoke Fenrir and continued. Your next opponent is Carlo Aur, who has the martial spirit of Filipino hero Raja Indrapatra. These two martial spirits, Indrapatra and Solomon, are two twin princes. Their host must be twins as well, but Indrapatra always gets to choose the strongest one in the duo, leaving the weaker one to Solomon. Before Fenrir could speak more, the mysterious voice intervened by announcing, "The winner of the 8th ring is Ezra Zephyr. He will be sent to the next floor." Light engulfed Ezra Zephyr the moment the voice ended. He took a last glance at the dead Victor Brownmane and said, "Don't worry, Fenrir. I am not stupid, I take every word of yours very seriously." Bloom. Blinding light attacked the eyes of the prince, he shut down his eyelids, and he felt as if he was floating in the deep ocean, not swimming against it but floating alongside and becoming one. His body felt liveliness. The light vanished, and he could sense the strange atmosphere. His eyes opened, and he found himself in a deep forest. He pivoted his head. All the winners of the previous round were present. Jon Stark was calm and composed. He had a friendly smile decorated on his face when he looked at Ezra Zephyr. He looked refreshed. "Hi, Ezra," said in a melodious voice. It was none other than Fairy Hololeth. Her burnt body was fully healed, and the seductive looks and charm she lost reappeared on her physique. She also seemed to overcome the death of Baron. But how? He asked himself. Does this have anything to do with that strange phenomenon where he was floating in an unknown realm? After a minute, he shook his head and extinguished all the useless thoughts. Aker Boldheart was proudly waving his axe hammer. The claw attack from the youngest prince, Leomord Tigerian, was nowhere to be seen on his body. Everyone's wounds were healed. Ezra looked again. 3 people knelt before him. They were Zulfi Dimitri, Shifa Pista, and their Gale arms. Ezra didn't react and gestured them to stand up. When he turned his head, he intentionally revealed a smile. The 3 subordinates of his smiled. There was visible satisfaction in their eyes. Everyone waited for a specific voice to come, and soon their waiting paid off. "Congratulations, the 8 of you managed to climb up. First of all, let me inform you that you have permission to surrender and leave now. You will receive the blessings as per your rankings. Move out, those who want to leave. There will be life and death situations." Silence befell in the deep forest. Everyone was in deep thought. They were battling inside their mind on what to do. However, Carlo and Ezra stood carelessly calm. The Prince of Ezra finally made a move. His eyes met his subordinates who were waiting for the order. Some hidden messages were sent and 2 people came out, their Gale arms and Shifa Pista. "We want to surrender and leave," they both said uniformly. The mysterious voice said nothing, and light took away the 2 werewolves. Seeing that, Aker Biljard hesitatingly stepped forward. "I don't know who will be my next opponent, or what will be the rules. It's better to get little with my head intact. This dwarf is not a greedy one," said the battle maniac. Following him, Zulfi Dimitri stepped out as well. "I want to leave as well." Of course, it was the decision of Ezra. Zulfi wanted to fight, but the prince ordered him through secret gesture language they invented during the invasion of the Warborn and Tribban kingdom. Both dwarf and werewolf vanished with the sparkling light. Only 4 left. Ezra Zephyr, Jon Stark, Fairy Hololeth, and Carlo Aur. "Sigh, I am being utterly stupid, but I'm gonna stay," said Jon Stark. "So will I," the only female spoke. BBZZZZYYYUUUU. 2 chasms were created before them. "Those who will enter the same chasm will face each other," said mysterious voice. "Thank God, we can pick our opponents," sighed Jon in relief. But the mysterious voice came again. "The winner will be decided when one dies or his opponent accepts his surrender." Carlo Aur, who remained calm all the while, started to move. Slowly, like a majestic beast, he used his feet and entered the first chasm. The eyes of Jon Stark and Ezra Zephyr saw each other. Jon knew that the werewolf prince will choose the other side. But to his surprise, Ezra moved towards the chasm in which Carlo went. Fairy, the enchantress, wanted to avenge Baron, but she couldn't gather the strength to stop Ezra and go in his stead. At last, she gritted her teeth in shame and regret after murmuring, "Come back alive, Ezra." Fair Sword started his walk as he said, "I won't be lenient just because we are acquaintances." He entered the portal. Fairy calmed herself and followed him silently, both vanished as soon as they touched the portal. Chee-chee chirp. Ezra heard countless bird chirps. He looked at his surroundings and found himself on a gigantic circle. Crimson stones used on the ground were showing that this color is achieved by drinking countless blood. This circle battle arena was surrounded by tall thick trees, and there were large and small boulders and hills on the arena. At the very front was Carlo Aur, facing Ezra Zephyr. Finally, the clash of titans. The best genius of the Naren continent versus the best genius of the Upper Realm invading group. You look quit. Thumb. Before Ezra could say, a punch was right in front of his face. The Prince of Bloodfang Kingdom was shocked by his speed, but it was not beyond expectations of Ezra. The prince slowly dodged the attack, cleanly. Terrifying everyone, even Carlo was slightly surprised by his quick reaction. The next moment, 4 bullets were shot towards him, he took out his strange Yurumi sword to slice them. Bang bong bang bang. 4 loud blasting sounds occurred, and instead of cutting those bullets, he was knocked a few meters away. His eyebrows twitched in astonishment. He was feeling the strong vibrations from his sword by that impact. He looked at those 4 bullets and found that they were bracers. For some reason he was not shocked anymore. He started to walk towards Ezra. The latter was smirking as usual. Both men came closer. There was a lot of hatred and killing intent revolving around the two, but both kept great control. Carlo Aur was towering Ezra Zephyr. The latter was not short, he was 6 feet 2 inches, but the man from Las Felipas had the giant height of 6 feet 5 inches. Ezra Zephyr, am I correct? Asked Carlo. The prince nodded in affirmation. How did you become so strong in the lower realm? Those bracers, they are of legendary tier, how did you get them? The big man in loincloth asked everything that he had in his mind. Everything is possible in this world. Lower realm is a cursed land, left by the great gods. So we have our own ways. Carlo chuckled. Don't lie, lower realm people is the synonym of insects. Then why have you come to the land of insects? Asked Ezra, his tone filled with mockery. For Spirity Bailiwick, what else do the insects have for me? Carlo didn't answer for a while. He pondered a bit and smiled. It was a genuine smile. He looked at Ezra and said, You are right, you are not an insect. You want to win the biggest blessing of Spirity Bailiwick? Join Las Filipinas and I will surrender, you can have it. The werewolf prince was shocked. He didn't think that there will be an offer to join a mythical faction in the upper realm. What is your answer? Asked Carlo. He was serious, his eyes gave a grave aura. The prince pondered for a moment and questioned. What are the benefits and losses? The perks are, you will get unlimited resources and you will have absolute authority in this lower realm. I will move back to the upper realm. Many talented geniuses like Rima and Carl of our faction will come here and assist you. The only loss is that everything you own will become the possession of Las Filipinas, including your Bloodfang Kingdom and its subjects. However, you will become representative of Las Filipinas and can still rule them. Carlo calmly explained. Ezra lightly scratched his chin in deep thought. What if I reject the offer? He asked while scratching his chin. Carlo's smile vanished as he uttered. I will kill you. Oh. That's a terrible punishment, very terrible. He said. Carlo turned his back towards Ezra and moved back and forth. You killed my only brother. Despite the fact that I am dying to kill you, I controlled my emotions and looked at the bright and broad future. My brother was indeed a weakling, but not to the extent that he would die at the hands of a lower realm dweller. But you managed to kill him, this proved your strength. Said Carlo. The Prince of Bloodfang stopped scratching. I am from the upper realm as well, I serve the cause of Greek. Carlo paused, he raised his eyebrows slowly. No wonder you killed Rollo. His tone changed. So, you reject my offer? Huh. Are you not aware that Los Filipinos is far weaker than the Greeks in the upper realm? Why would I betray the stronger faction for a weaker one? To save your life, the intimidating aura flowed out of Carlo Aur. Clap, clap, clap. Haha, bravo. You sure are a dominating person, I lied. I do not belong to any faction, I am born and raised in Naren continent. To be frank, this is the first time I left my homeland. Carlo's reaction turned rigid. Then how did you learn about the faction of Greek? He was doubtful, because the lower realm is unaware of the factions of the upper realm. From your brother, who else would tell me such a thing? He replied with a laugh and continued. Carlo, let me give you an offer too. Carlo squinted his eyes, but didn't say anything. If you join my Bloodfang kingdom, I will give you 10 times more what Los Filipinos is giving you, your authority will be second only to king. So, wanna join? Asked Ezra Zephyr. Carlo shook his head. My loyalty towards Los Filipinos is unshakable. Ezra Zephyr, who was smiling and laughing, became serious. Same goes for me, my loyalty lies with my kingdom and Bloodfang is inferior to no one. The deadly aura was released by Ezra as well, it rivaled the intimidating aura of Carlo. Then our chatter will end here. Carlo vanished from sight. Countless elders of nascent soul were floating, their eyes were glued on the big screen. They all were envoys of different sects. What happened, why it is not showing anything? An envoy of clans asked. I don't know, this is the first time. The screen showed us all the rounds every time. Said another envoy. Shut up. A loud yell from afar, 7 figures were standing in the air in that area. They were the infamous envoys of 7 supreme clans. Is this because of the interference of those unknown people? Asked a gentle-looking old man, his hair was all white. He was the envoy of Myriad Miracle Tower. Maybe, but how did they manage to enter, shall we kill them? A lady asked, she was the same who taunted Levos. Her name was Rubab, envoy of Veiled Virgin Valley. No, we must wait. We do not know the power behind them, one of them had an 8th grade martial spirit. A very handsome man, he had silver long hair. His name was Dionys, the sorcerer from Continental Magic Academy. A tough and tall-looking man, his height was 7 feet, muscles looked like they were made of steel. Haha, our continent has shown numerous gems this time. 3 of the 4 unknown people have died, I like that guy from Bloodfang. But alas, he is very evil. The envoy of Dragonbone Pavilion said. You are right, Mortar, he is evil. He should be annihilated. Levos from Holy Law Sect spoke, he was bubbling up in anger deep inside. The genius he found from Brownmane Empire, Victor Brownmane, was killed by Ezra Zephyr. Haha, is this because he killed that Brownmane kid? Orama from Dua Mountain Peak asked as he chuckled. Orama, are you siding with that evil youth? We all agreed that none of us will take him in, if you go against us, it will be disadvantageous to your Dua Mountain Peak. The man with numerous slashes on his body said. Both of his hands were resting on the swords he had, one on each side of his waist. He was called Blade, an envoy of sword mastery abode. Orama's face twitched, he didn't reply, and kept his silence. He is very strange, we couldn't even see his martial spirit through the screen. Said Dionys. It was just a cloud of darkness, with powerful black lightning thundering around it. Rubab spoke. Especially his soul-devouring spell. Dionys said. The atmosphere of the 7 envoys changed rigid as if a forbidden topic was discussed. We must kill him and all other Bloodfang. How could a small destroyed kingdom get its hands on that number of special tier weapons? Levos said. Did they find any ancient ruins? Asked Mortar. Levos shook his head. Not possible, I am close with Emperor Bruce of Brownmane Empire. He told me a lot about Bloodfang long ago, a mythic ruin was not mentioned. Enough with chatter, fellas, do something about the screen. We must see the next fights. I wonder who is stronger, Carlo Aur or Ezra Zephyr. Carlo Aur vanished from the sight of Ezra Zephyr, but the latter did not flinch. He lowered his gaze, an uppercut was coming at his chin. He turned his head to dodge the attack. Whoosh! The punch cut through the air, making the sound of a gust. In the blink of an eye, Carlo vanished again and appeared at Ezra's side. Another punch was sent towards the Prince of Bloodfang Kingdom. Fum. He caught his punch of Carlo and smirked. Is that all? You know you are weaker than Rollo. Carlo didn't speak and swung a kick at Ezra. The kick carried a tremendous amount of physical power. Fuck. Before the kick could reach the height of the waist, Ezra Zephyr stopped the kick with the sole of his foot. Whoosh. With a gale-like movement, Carlo launched a round kick. Bangg. Again, Ezra blocked it with his arms. My turn, said Ezra in a low voice. He grabbed the leg of Carlo and kicked the other leg that was on the ground. The torso of Carlo was about to fall, and with no legs on the ground, he extended his hands to hold himself on. Just when his hands landed on the ground, Ezra sent a kick, aimed at Carlo's weak parts. Bangg. Carlo was thrown away by the kick like a hammer throw. He spun in midair and landed on his feet. His facial expressions all showed that he was unhurt. Carlo came at him again. Ezra didn't wait this time and bolted his way to meet him. Carlo punched first, and Ezra dodged it easily by tilting his head. As the punch crossed his head, he countered Carlo with a left. Bang! But that punch was like a mosquito bite to Carlo. He threw a wide left punch, and Ezra ducked and landed a right hook on his liver. Bang! It seemed like it was a normal exchange of physical martial arts, but in reality, they were moving at an unrealistic speed that one could not even grasp. Bong bang bang. Surprise was developing on the face of Carlo Aur. His every move was bested by Ezra Zephyr. Bong. This is called a jab. Bomb. A left hook. Boom. A high kick for you. Bomb. A straight right punch. Ezra was mocking after every attack that hit Carlo Aur. They were at the same level of martial prowess and physical power. However, the mastery of Ezra's martial arts was beyond Carlo Aur's level. Carlo Aur was serious with every move while his opponent was in fun and laughter. The series of disrespectful failures, he murmured in anger. You rascal. The grayish chi started to flood out. Hey! That's unfair. I was teaching you some martial arts. Spiritual energy is not allowed. Canc. Bam. Finally, a punch landed on Ezra Zephyr. He was blown away hundreds of meters. The power shown by Ezra Zephyr doesn't belong to the lower realm. Simply put, it was unheard of. All four limbs of Lionman were twisted and destroyed in different ways. The common thing was they looked heinous now. Time to part our ways, Your Majesty, said Ezra. He was waiting for the results of the rest of the rings so he could harvest. After accomplishing his mission, he wanted to enjoy the last meal. Soul absorption. He cast the spell. This was a unique spell that Ezra created with the help of Fenrir's teaching. He couldn't figure out the exact circles this spell needed and only had a vague guess. It was a strange spell, and Fenrir stayed quiet when Ezra asked him. The circle formed and the soul started to leave the body of Brownmane Empire's second prince. He cried, but no voice came out of his mouth, only his suffering face, and the river of tears flowing from his eyes showed that he was in pain. During the torture earlier, Ezra ran a bolt of chaotic lightning onto his throat. Destroying the entire neck and vocals, only made sure that he could breathe. Soon, the soul came out in the form of a ball and went into the chest of Ezra. Fenrir opened his mouth to devour the marshal. Spirit. Roarr. A crimson-red lion roared. Lower your voice. Both Fenrir and Ezra retorted to the warning of the lion, respectively. The lion couldn't resist the suction force and got itself devoured. Ezra didn't smile in satisfaction. Instead, he was looking at the dead Victor Brownmane in quietness. He felt like something is missing, and even after killing him in the worst way possible, he was not satisfied at all. Why my anger hasn't decreased a bit, it feels like I killed the wrong person. He mumbled. Focus, boy. Brownmane Empire is the last thing you should be worrying about," spoke Fenrir and continued. "Your next opponent is Carlo Aur, who has the martial spirit of Filipino hero Raja Indrapatra. These two martial spirits, Indrapatra and Solomon, are two twin princes. Their host must be twins as well, but Indrapatra always gets to choose the strongest one in the duo, leaving the weaker one to Solomon." Before Fenrir could speak more, the mysterious voice intervened by announcing, "The winner of the 8th ring is Ezra Zephyr. He will be sent to the next floor." Light engulfed Ezra Zephyr the moment the voice ended. He took a last glance at the dead Victor Brownmane and said, "Don't worry, Fenrir. I am not stupid, I take every word of yours very seriously." Bloom. Blinding light attacked the eyes of the prince, he shut down his eyelids, and he felt as if he was floating in the deep ocean, not swimming against it but floating alongside and becoming one. His body felt liveliness. The light vanished, and he could sense the strange atmosphere. His eyes opened, and he found himself in a deep forest. He pivoted his head. All the winners of the previous round were present. Jon Stark was calm and composed. He had a friendly smile decorated on his face when he looked at Ezra Zephyr. He looked refreshed. "Hi, Ezra," said in a melodious voice. It was none other than Fairy Hololeth. Her burnt body was fully healed, and the seductive looks and charm she lost reappeared on her physique. She also seemed to overcome the death of Baron. But how? He asked himself. Does this have anything to do with that strange phenomenon where he was floating in an unknown realm? After a minute, he shook his head and extinguished all the useless thoughts. Aker Boldheart was proudly waving his axe hammer. The claw attack from the youngest prince, Leomord Tigerian, was nowhere to be seen on his body. Everyone's wounds were healed. Ezra looked again. 3 people knelt before him. They were Zulfi Dimitri, Shifa Pista, and Urgale Arms. Ezra didn't react and gestured them to stand up. When he turned his head, he intentionally revealed a smile. The 3 subordinates of his smiled. There was visible satisfaction in their eyes. Everyone waited for a specific voice to come, and soon their waiting paid off. "Congratulations, the 8 of you managed to climb up. First of all, let me inform you that you have permission to surrender and leave now. You will receive the blessings as per your rankings. Move out, those who want to leave. There will be life and death situations." Silence befell in the deep forest. Everyone was in deep thought. They were battling inside their mind on what to do. However, Carlo and Ezra stood carelessly calm. The Prince of Ezra finally made a move. His eyes met his subordinates who were waiting for the order. Some hidden messages were sent and 2 people came out, their Gale Arms and Shifa Pista. "We want to surrender and leave," they both said uniformly. The mysterious voice said nothing, and light took away the 2 werewolves. Seeing that, Aker Biljard hesitatingly stepped forward. "I don't know who will be my next opponent, or what will be the rules. It's better to get little with my head intact. This dwarf is not a greedy one," said the battle maniac. Following him, Zulfi Dimitri stepped out as well. "I want to leave as well." Of course, it was the decision of Ezra. Zulfi wanted to fight, but the prince ordered him through secret gesture language they invented during the invasion of the Warborn and Tribban kingdom. Both dwarf and werewolf vanished with the sparkling light. Only 4 left. Ezra Zephyr, Jon Stark, Fairy Hololeth, and Carlo Aur. "Sigh, I am being utterly stupid, but I'm gonna stay," said Jon Stark. "So will I," the only female spoke. BBZZZZYYYUUUU. 2 chasms were created before them. "Those who will enter the same chasm will face each other," said mysterious voice. "Thank God, we can pick our opponents," sighed Jon in relief. But the mysterious voice came again. "The winner will be decided when one dies or his opponent accepts his surrender." Carlo Aur, who remained calm all the while, started to move. Slowly, like a majestic beast, he used his feet and entered the first chasm. The eyes of Jon Stark and Ezra Zephyr saw each other. Jon knew that the werewolf prince will choose the other side. But to his surprise, Ezra moved towards the chasm in which Carlo went. Fairy, the enchantress, wanted to avenge Baron, but she couldn't gather the strength to stop Ezra and go in his stead. At last, she gritted her teeth in shame and regret after murmuring, "Come back alive, Ezra." Fair Sword started his walk as he said, "I won't be lenient just because we are acquaintances." He entered the portal. Fairy calmed herself and followed him silently, both vanished as soon as they touched the portal. Chee-chee chirp. Ezra heard countless bird chirps. He looked at his surroundings and found himself on a gigantic circle. Crimson stones used on the ground were showing that this color is achieved by drinking countless blood. This circle battle arena was surrounded by tall thick trees, and there were large and small boulders and hills on the arena. At the very front was Carlo Aur, facing Ezra Zephyr. Finally, the clash of titans. The best genius of the Naren continent versus the best genius of the Upper Realm invading group. You look quit. Thumb. Before Ezra could say, a punch was right in front of his face. The Prince of Bloodfang Kingdom was shocked by his speed, but it was not beyond expectations of Ezra. The prince slowly dodged the attack, cleanly. Terrifying everyone, even Carlo was slightly surprised by his quick reaction. The next moment, 4 bullets were shot towards him, he took out his strange Urumi sword to slice them. Bang bong bang bang. 4 loud blasting sounds occurred, and instead of cutting those bullets, he was knocked a few meters away. His eyebrows twitched in astonishment. He was feeling the strong vibrations from his sword by that impact. He looked at those 4 bullets and found that they were bracers. For some reason he was not shocked anymore. He started to walk towards Ezra. The latter was smirking as usual. Both men came closer. There was a lot of hatred and killing intent revolving around the two, but both kept great control. Carlo Aur was towering Ezra Zephyr. The latter was not short, he was 6 feet 2 inches, but the man from Las Felipas had the giant height of 6 feet 5 inches. Ezra Zephyr, am I correct? Asked Carlo. The prince nodded in affirmation. How did you become so strong in the lower realm? Those bracers, they are of legendary tier, how did you get them? The big man in loincloth asked everything that he had in his mind. Everything is possible in this world. Lower realm is a cursed land, left by the great gods. So we have our own ways. Carlo chuckled. Don't lie, lower realm people is the synonym of insects. Then why have you come to the land of insects? Asked Ezra, his tone filled with mockery. For Spirity Bailiwick, what else do the insects have for me? Carlo didn't answer for a while. He pondered a bit and smiled. It was a genuine smile. He looked at Ezra and said, You are right, you are not an insect. You want to win the biggest blessing of Spirity Bailiwick? Join Las Filipinas and I will surrender, you can have it. This attack of Carlo Aur was packed with spiritual energy, and Ezra Zephyr was knocked away. Bam. He hit a giant tree and stopped. A forest ring that had numerous large trees in it resounded the sound. Ezra felt a tremendous crushing force. He stood up. This is unbelievable, I thought you are an honorable man. He said and stepped forward. Shoo. The man in loincloth appeared again, his entire body was dipped in grayish spiritual energy. At that time even Ezra couldn't see his movements, but right after, something black flickered. Crackle crackle. Black bolts danced around him, and the Prince of Bloodfang Kingdom unleashed his spiritual energy. The mid of Carlo was 2 inches away from him. Ezra moved his head, and Carlo could see how his opponent was dodging his attack, but everything happened so fast and beautifully that he couldn't do anything. In the next moment, the upper realm invader saw a palm in front of his eyes. Phaa. It slammed onto his face, like a humiliating slap. With the same speed, his body was forced back. Bam. Another slamming sound resounded in the forest, and a figure hit the giant tree again. But, that figure was not Ezra Zephyr, but Carlo Aur. His eyes widened, he couldn't believe he was countered every single time. Who are you? He asked Ezra, but soon, he spoke again. No, who is your martial spirit? He asked the authentic question this time. The smirking prince replied, well, it's someone you know. If you don't, then you can ask your martial spirit, the great hero Raja Indrapatra. Another shock appeared in Carlo's eyes. How does he know about my martial spirit? But soon, the shock disappeared. He assumed that his dead brother would have told him. Name? Asked Carlo again. Insects don't answer, retorted Ezra. Berserk black bolts flashed and he dashed towards Carlo. Carlo flinched, he raised his hands to block the extremely fast punch. The punch went through his arms, he didn't feel anything. A feint. His eyes widened in worry. Boom. A liver blow. Ack, he curved a bit in pain. Bomb. With a nasty uppercut, the muscle man in a loincloth was blown in the air. Before he could prepare, the man in a black long coat with dark lightning flashing around him reappeared. He spun in midair and aimed the chest of Carlo with his heel. The upper realm genius was quick enough to cover his chest. Foof. A heel hit and Carlo went down like a shooting star. Boom. He hit the ground, forming a huge dent. Unlike the previous round, this one had a nature-based ring. Even the air felt like a real breeze, none part of the ring looked man-made, all was purely natural. Carlo grunted, his eyes moved to track the opponent, and he pushed himself to maintain the stance. The black figure appeared once again, his palm gently touching the clean-shaven face of Carlo. Dom. And smashed it on the ground, the face still in the clench of the werewolf prince. He was about to shove it into the ground when something magical happened. Carlo Aur vanished. It was not a run or another physical marvel, but a spell, a teleportation spell. Ezra smirked as he looked in a direction. Second circle spell, finite teleport. Right? Said Ezra. A figure appeared in that direction. Carlo Aur was standing there with a disturbed expression. The man in a loincloth was not in a pleasant mood. Carlo touched his chest and murmured. First seal, unlock. Grayish mana came out of his hand and went inside his body. A spiritual imprint appeared above his head. It consisted of 3 circles. After Carlo finished, one of the circles vibrated and vanished. A large amount of spiritual energy surged out and Carlo moved. He marched in front of Ezra Zephyr and appeared. Ezra was bewildered, he could see the kick coming at him, but its speed was something that enabled him to dodge in meantime. Bomb. A metallic sound echoed and the man in the black coat was fanned away. Cough cough, the Prince of Bloodfang Kingdom felt the impact. He took out the last weighing piece of training, the chest piece. He felt as if he has become as light as a feather, and soon, the opponent of his showed himself. This time, the prince went for it. His speed slightly shocked Carlo. What an interesting man. He is the pride of the lower realm, too sad that such pride would be akin to shit beneath upper realm children's foot. Despite the fact that Ezra killed his brother and also forced him to unlock the seal, Carlo was unwilling to accept the might of the lower realm. Both met head-on, and tremendous clashes of punches and kicks appeared. Carlo showed terrifying speed and power while Ezra exhibited his unique techniques and calculated counters. During the exchange of blows, Carlo landed a solid punch on Ezra's face. Blood oozed out of his nostrils, and Ezra ducked another punch that followed after the one that broke his nose. As he dodged, he rushed upward. Carlo expected an uppercut, however, that was not an uppercut but an elbow aimed at his eye. Carlo tilted his head and dodged by hair's breadth. The elbow unwillingly spared the eye but made a deep cut on the eyebrow, and red blood gushed out. Both made some distance. Carlo took a deep breath and opened his mouth to spit words. You are good with martial arts. No, the word good would be an insult, you are excellent. He praised genuinely and continued. However, what you just showed are moves. People will laugh at you if you call this bullshit a martial art. Ezra raised his eyebrows and made a pouty moue. Oh. Well, care to explain? It was nothing but a ridiculous mock. Carlo shook his head and said. Words won't teach you, but actions will, let me demonstrate. He took out his sword, it was a sharp one. A shiny, it looked different compared to before. Or maybe because in the previous round, it was far from Ezra to inspect. It was a strange sword or 3 swords, it had 1 hilt but 3 blades of different sizes, and it shone in grayish light. He raised his sword high, and mana poured out of his body and gathered around the sword whippy blade, cleaving space. Said he. An invisible attack was released, and Ezra looked pale as if a bolt ran through his blood, freezing it. He felt extreme sharpness, and took out his short sword Efsa and swung it with full force. Portal cutter. VROM. A space was cut in the air. SHEEM. A chilling sound occurred, and the land was divided cleanly, a huge fissure appeared, and Ezra's eyes widened. A huge wide gap appeared, and only the area covered by portal cutter was spared. This. Ezra gasped. A satisfied expression appeared on Carlo's face. This is a martial art. The Prince of Bloodfang looked bewildered, the attack had a strange sensation. How did you do that? Asked Ezra Zephyr. I learnt this since I was a child, this was a martial art that my martial spirit, Raja Indrapatra, used when he was alive. There are many mysteries in this world, some mysteries are so strange that even we of the upper realm are unaware of them. Just like the mystery of, leave it. It's a waste talking to you about such a topic, but I will answer your question. He wiped the blood that was entering his eye and spoke again. There are spells, skills, and armament abilities. Spells and skills are common, but armament abilities are very rare, right? Only armament of legendary tier and above can have such ability. Your short sword had that strange spatial ability to cut the space, quite fascinating, I was surprised. Ezra's face started to turn grave as he silently listened to the former. However, there is still something even rarer than armament ability. It is called martial arts, a power that is solely suitable for a particular type of physique. Ezra squinted his eyes. Particular type of physique? Carlo smiled. Do not worry, I am not expecting you to know all this, just consider it as an enlightenment before death. Ezra clenched his fist, he was ready for any incoming sudden attacks. A particular physique is called martial body in the upper realm, a body that is made for a unique style. My body is made to wield the Shirumi sword called Omakan. Only I am capable of mastering the martial art called Whippy Blade, my body was perfect for it and Raja Indrapatra trained me. Unlike skills and spells, martial arts does not focus on the attribute of the user but the style of his body construction. If one has the martial body of swords, then he can learn a sword-based martial art that suits him the best. It will unleash an additional powerful might from the body, though spiritual energy can assist it and create amazing results. It does not lay in its roots, the roots lay in extreme training and type of martial body. Your moves and battle sense are outstanding, no one has ever bested me with one-on-one fist fight, but you did and forced me to unlock the first seal. Hearing all that, Ezra fell into silence. Ezra, you still have a chance. There is a possibility for you to get martial art, we have several masters. Maybe you find any whose martial art is suitable for you. Think wisely, my offer still stands. Carlo invited the prince again. The prince shook his head. Not interested. Carlo was disappointed, his face dimmed as he touched his chest again. Second seal, unlock. Mumbled the man in a loincloth. Ezra felt danger, he survived up until now by utilizing the combat experience he gathered every day for 5 years. Still, after unlocking the first seal, Carlo's speed and power surpassed him. However, he managed to best him, and the boost he received from devouring geniuses helped him a lot. But now, he could only wait and see. Carlo disappeared, he used finite teleport and moved behind Ezra Zephyr. Boom. A kick on his back and Ezra Zephyr went like an arrow, he hit multiple trees, bouncing against them. His body started to ache, he still had some hidden cards to use but he wanted Carlo to reveal his first. Did you really think you were worthy of defeating me? Carlo, who had teleported next to the Prince of Bloodfang Kingdom, asked. Ezra looked at him, and he grinned. There was blood in his gum. Your brother also showed some powerful spells before dying, what makes you unique? Ezra proved him with a bloody smile on his face. Carlo snorted in annoyance and kicked him, throwing him a few meters away, but Ezra was able to minimize the power. He stood and slapped the dust away from his clothes. "My brother was stupid, he couldn't see through my efforts," said Carlo, his tone flowing with emotions as he continued. "It was I who secretly asked an elder to send him to Spirity Tower together with me, so he can earn some blessings. I let him handle the gang even when I had the authority to make them work for me. I let strong opponents like that unique dual martial spirit man and axe-hammer dwarf. In order for my brother to battle them and learn, but that silly big brother ended up dying. These seals." Carlo touched his chest. "I asked for these seals to hide my power because I was afraid that he might feel inferior. I never trained in front of him either. Alas, he always thought of me as a rival while I was looking for my only brother. The gap between our communication was intentionally created or he would have been in danger." He stayed quiet and looked at the sky after venting his deep sorrow, but soon after, his sight turned the direction to Ezra. "But you killed him." There was no spiritual energy surge, but his eyes had deep solid killing intent. Ezra Zephyr sighed. "Truly a tragic scene, I vaguely remember. When my punch shattered his jaw and a few teeth popped out, he cried brother. When my knuckles tore his cheek and his white bone was visible, he took his last sigh and said brother. When he knew that he was gone dash. Boom." Carlo Aur was trembling in rage, his only family member was killed. He couldn't hear more of what Ezra was saying and hit him. But soon his anger withered when he saw the man in front was not budged at all. He caught the fist of Carlo Aur in his palms. The tall genius in a loincloth was in disbelief. His skin was glowing, and every part of his body showed strange scales, emitting a purple color. Ezra finally used dragon pelt. Carlo was bewildered, he was amazed at how many trump cards this person possesses. With the revelation of each of Carlo's hidden trump cards, Ezra showcased something as well that countered Carlo. The man in loincloth took a few steps back, he was now in a pissed mood. He cast the alpha layer skill, Finite Teleport. It has the same name and effect as the Finite Teleport spell. He appeared behind Ezra and swung his Yurumi sword to cut the latter's legs off. However, the Prince of Bloodfang Kingdom was not a newbie. He jumped without paying any heed. After years of countless life-and-death battle-like situations, his mind developed wild instincts and his body learned extraordinary muscle memory. Ezra was in the mid-air, but it took Carlo one single alpha layer skill to appear behind him again. It was impossible for anyone below the foundation establishment stage to move in mid-air. One could use spiritual energy to some extent, but Carlo was not a man who would spare that time. Ezra now had no way to defend himself, his hands moved and two weapons appeared in his hands. A purple thorny hook and a blue short sword, one was naturally crude while the other was remarkably sharp. The Yurumi sword of Carlo named Omaka moved, and all three different-sized blades descended towards the floating werewolf prince. Ezra swung his short sword Efsa, portal cutter, he said in his mind, and the space was cut. Carlo flinched and quickly teleported away, he was unaware that portal cutter doesn't hurt physical bodies. As soon as Carlo teleported, Ezra's left hand slightly moved, the movement was small to none and Dripa shot like an arrow and dug inside a giant tree branch. Ezra did a powerful pull and his body bolted towards the branch. Impossible. Carlo flinched. It was the voice of someone who rarely talked, the mighty prince and victor of Lanao Lake, Raja Indarapatra. What picture keen interest, master? Asked Carlo. Unlike the ordinary relationship between a martial spirit and a host, the relationship between Carlo and Raja Indarapatra was like a disciple and master. His weapons, I recognize that invisible chain attached to his poisonous hook. Raja Indarapatra responded, his voice was thick and stormy, like a resounding thunder. Carlo was flabbergasted, how could something that master know exist in this lower realm? He asked in worry. The echo-like voice came again. This chain is called Gleipnit, an invisible and unbreakable chain made from 6 impossible materials. Carlo's shock grew, and slowly his eyes widened, the playful look on his face disappeared and kinds of worry could be seen on his forehead. Raja Indarapatra continued. The stomping of cats, the beards of women, the roots of mountains, the spits of birds, the breath of fish and the sinew of a bear. Carlo completed what Raja Indarapatra started. Very good, you remembered them well. Praised the hero of Lano Lake. Does that mean his martial spirit is? Carlo's voice stuttered. Yes, very likely, it is Fenrir. Drops of sweat appeared on Carlo's forehead and eventually fell down. At the same time, Ezra Zephyr, who was on a huge branch of a gigantic tree, was looking at Carlo in puzzlement. His lost and unsettled face worried the Prince of Bloodfang. Boy, I believe he figured it out about me. The monstrous wolf of Norse said. Is that so? His sudden reaction indicated that as well. But, how can Carlo know about you, or maybe we are the ones thinking too much? Fenrir gradually shook his head. Not him, but his martial spirit. Ezra remembered, and the hair on his arm stood. Raja Indarapatra. As soon as he thought of this name, he jerked his head to see the surroundings, but the giant trees blocked the view. Carlo calmed down, even though he was surprised beyond his wits, but still, he was the sole host of legendary Raja Indarapatra. Are you the host of Fenrisulfur, the monstrous wolf of Norse? Asked Carlo. Huh? Who is that dickhead? He retorted. You ornery insolent punk, what did you just call me? Fenrir was furious. Ezra sked and replied. Shut up, it's an act. He stopped and continued. And what if I call you a dickhead? Stay silent and watch the show, only peek when you have something useful to say, dickhead. Fenrir gritted his teeth and stayed as he was told. He knew arguing further will hurt his pride as he is unable to counter the tricky foul-mouthed werewolf host of his. Carlo's eyes were locked on Ezra Zephyr. Still denying? What's there to deny? How could an entity belonging to the superpower Norse select a boy who was cripple? Cripple? Asked Carlo. Unlike Rollo, who allied with lower realm people, Carlo played the game solo and only gathered important information. Yes, I was crippled by Brownmane Empire. Then how did you recover and become this much more powerful? Ezra palmed his face and said. And why would I tell you that? Are all of the upper realm people dumb, or you are a special case? Carlo was about to speak, but he stopped his tongue as if he was ordered by someone. Gamma layer skill, Dimension Cutter. The chatter ended and Carlo used the skill. The Omaka Yurumi sword glowed in grayish chi, the atmosphere turned grim. The thick grayish spiritual energy was suffocating the forest. To some extent, it looked like the fifth circle spell, Abyssal Slash, but more powerful. Vamum. The three blades of the Omaka Yurumi sword coated three different chi covers, and with that, the man in loincloth swung his sword. Three different vertical slashes emerged and came towards the Prince of Bloodfang at terrifying speed with a strange vibrating sound. Gamma layer skill, glittering wind and light. WHOOSSSSH. The surge of wind and twinkling lights covered Ezra Zephyr, and two balls of dual attributes appeared in both of his hands. Efsa the short sword moved in the air until Ezra bit the hilt of it and held it between his teeth. He dashed to descend onto the incoming attack, and two balls of glittering wind and light hit two of the slashes. Boom boom. Loud blasting sounds resounded in the forest, and right after that, the third slash appeared in front of Ezra Zephyr. The sharp space attribute was slicing the air as it was moving forward. Ezra lurched his head sideways and murmured. Portal Cutter. Space distorted, and the slash released by Dimensional Cutter caught up in that distortion, and the chi packed inside of it scattered. The Prince of Bloodfang Kingdom survived the attack. Black lightning, wind and light. Three different attributes. Only the host of Fenrir can achieve that by its devouring power. Carlo said. He extended his hand. A thing came out of his space ring, a strange token. Made of leather and wood, it had the same imprints that the one Rollo showed. Ezra Zephyr understood what that token meant. He dashed with full speed. Stop. Just when he was 1 inch away from Carlo Aur, the latter teleported 100 meters away in. Huak. The token was broken and Ezra heard a familiar vibrating sound. I am Carlo Aur. Rima, Carl and my brother Carlo Aur are all dead. They were killed by Ezra Zephyr, the current host of the monstrous wolf of Norse. That damned wolf is hiding in the lower realm. The host is a royal blood werewolf from Bloodfang Kingdom and his martial prowess is at first level core formation stage. PHHIISSSSSH. The token turned into light and with a blinding spark it dashed into the sky. Ezra Zephyr's heart started to pound louder, he didn't know what to do, even Fenrir was silent. Fenrir, what should we do? He asked the one he trusted the most. Just wait for death, once they hear about me, they will unite despite their lifelong enmity and will send all the power they can gather to send down. Fenrir replied calmly. Ezra was panicked, he was not worried about himself, but about his family and kingdom. Is there any way? Asked the prince. Yes, there is, but the question is, will you walk on that path? Fenrir replied, death energy revolved around him when he uttered those words. Yes, the answer of Ezra was summarized in a single word. Kill everyone and devour them, even innocent villagers, and your own kingdom subjects. With that, there is a 1% chance that you and your family may survive. Hearing the words, Ezra was shocked. He was still lost in thinking when he saw a flash in the sky. He looked into the sky but couldn't see it clearly, the branches were hiding the flash. All of a sudden, Carlo teleported somewhere, his face had confusion, shock and desperation on it. Ezra didn't wait for another second and jumped upwards, being trained in the forest, he was more comfortable than anyone. When he reached the top of the very highest tree in the vicinity, he was shocked to see that the flash that was released from Carlo's token was stuck in the light barrier and couldn't penetrate it. Ezra's shock widened, this was the same strange light that appeared when he was absorbing and devouring the souls and martial spirits in the previous round. Not long after, the mysterious came. Nothing shall come inside in this ring or go outside from this ring, even if that is a message. SSPPLLAAA. A strange busting sound and the token message was destroyed. The message sent from Carlo Aur was instantly scattered against the mighty light shield that protected the ring from all sides. Horror brimmed inside his heart, his confused and terrified eyes told that he was in extreme scare. Master, did you see what happened? Asked Carlo in a pausing voice. The well-known hero of Lano Lake was disturbed as well. No one below the spiritual transformation stage can stop the Filipino token, even for spiritual transformation expert, it will be very hard. This power is very different, it's troubling me. Replied Raja. Indarapatra. At the same time, on the top of a tall tree, the werewolf grinned ear to ear. They failed. His face looked gratified. Despite the excited Ezra, the monstrous wolf of Norse was in bottomless heat boy. He uttered but stopped, it seemed as if he found something but wasn't sure. What is it, Fenrir? The Prince of Bloodfang Kingdom responded to the call. Fenrir lightly shook his head. Nothing serious. Ezra looked at him and then turned his conscience towards the man who was his opponent. Carlo, end this, now. Fenrir is cunning, if his host is the prince of a kingdom here, then he will surely have various measures. Hurry up and kill him, my instincts keep telling me that this light is also one of his plans. Raja Indrapada warned. Carlo, who was bewildered to see that the infamous token of Los Filipinos was destroyed by some strange energy. He quickly tacked his head and looked at the man in the long black coat, who was smiling at him, the reaction of both competitors was very contrasting. No more. Murmured Carlo as spiritual energy started to outpour and with an unstoppable power and unseen speed he zipped to where Ezra was. Werewolf's eyes widened, he knew that he was in danger. Without wasting an ounce of effort, he vanished back into the deep forest. With alpha-level skill such as finite teleport, it was not hard for Carlo to catch up. However, this time, something strange was happening. The man named Ezra Zephyr was on the land, he was moving around the trees, both Efsa and Dripa in hand. He played a miraculous game in mid-air, his hand moved at a fast speed and with a long invisible chain glypnit. He was moving around the branches, vines, and trees. Carlo Aur teleported to the branch, but as soon as he landed there, Ezra was somewhere else. Carlo followed, but the strange irregular movements in mid-air were so unique that he couldn't find his next move. The duo of weapons moved in one way but stuck in another, confusing Carlo. He couldn't even track the chain because it was invisible. From the outside, it would look that the man in a loincloth was played by a man in black attire. But only he, himself knew how difficult it was. If not for his 5-years-long training, he wouldn't be able to accomplish such mastery in this thing. Carlo was irritated. I'll destroy this frickin' timber. Gamma layer skill, dimensional slash. The same grayish chi appeared around his Yurumi sword and 3 blades were released. VOOM. 3 gigantic trees were cleanly cut and fell on the ground. BHOOM. Ear-piercing blasts resounded in the timber, and Ezra Zephyr was alarmed. Dimensional slash. Another time the same gamma layer skill was used. Each time 3 big trees fell down, Ezra knew that if this continued, he will fall for the trap. Ezra, who was in the deep forest, came out and showed himself. Dumbass, destroying nature will harm the future of the continent. He taunted with an unfunny joke. Insect, hiding and jumping are all that an insect can do. Carlo retorted. Aha. And here I thought you were better than your brother, look at your mug face. You are bleeding, do the honor and tell me who made you bleed. Oh, wait. It was me. Haha. Damn you, cussed Carlo, and sprinted. Yurumi sword Omaka moved and the 3 different size blades turned into long metallic whips of 3 different sizes. This was the legendary weapon, a unique kind. The power of this armament was it could turn into very long whips. The shortest one can obtain a length of 50 meters, the middle one can extend up to 70 meters, while the last and longest one bat a reach of 90 meters. Just when he was about to hit him, a monstrous roar echoed inside the giant forest. Carlo flinched, his momentum broke, and at the exact same time, something pierced his cheek. A sheer burning sensation ignited within the cut. Carlo followed the attack and saw the purple hook in the hands of Ezra. A minuscule portion of his blood was present on the small thorny blades of the hook called Dripa. You are naive, he has poisoned you, said Raja Indarapatra. Hurry and release the last seal. Yes, master, 3rd seat dash. DHHAAMMM. Carlo pressed his chest and was about to release the last seal when something massive fell right behind him. The sound of landing was loud enough to be heard from miles away. Carlo was baffled when he turned around to look at the thing that fell down. It was a giant 2.7 meters tall and bulky bear. Its muscles and thick dark blue skin were horrific. It growled in anger as if that being hated the whole world. There were multiple imprints like patterns all around his body. They looked like the veins of this martial animal. Those strange patterns were glowing in green color. GRAAWWWWWL. It growled angrily and swung its arm. The perplexed Carlo quickly regained his wit just a second before the attack. He raised both of his arms to minimize the impact. BANNG. The slap looked as if the man in a loincloth was hit by a large gigantic hammer. He was blown away. Boom. He hit the tree and bounced to the side. His feet touched the ground and his eyes turned fierce. His pride was hurt. He was no any more worried about the existence of this martial animal. His feet were still gliding to stop and he quickly teleported. That bear was none other than Mad God Bear, named Caver. The first undead soldier of Ezra Zephyr. He was told by Fenrir that no one will be able to see what is happening inside as long as this strange spiritual energy barrier exists. Caver was still looking to the side where he knocked Carlo, but soon, that figure appeared behind the Mad God Titan. Carlo, who always admired himself and his might, was hurt by the attempt at physical dominance of this martial animal. A Tier 2 martial animal managed to hit me? Unforgivable. He clenched his hand and shoved his fist at the giant head of Caver. The Mad God Bear was late in responding. Before he could fully turn his body, the fist hit him like a drill. BANNG. The giant floated in the air and hit the tree, crumbling it into large pieces. Caver growled in pain and tried to stand, but before it could do anything, the man in loincloth appeared once again, and this time he had the Omaka sword in hand. Dimensional slash. With that said, 3 space-made slashes that had the property to ear air while slicing appeared and descended on Caver. The Mad God Titan used the beta layer skill he got from Ezra after he killed the Silver Orc, Explosive Force. A skill that multiplies the force power and overall physical strength of a martial animal. The strange bluish mist-like force surged out of Caver. Ezra looked at him with squinted eyes. He became a lot stronger, the color of his force changed. So the devouring helps my soldiers as well, that's a nice boon, he thought. The 3 slashes hit the surging force of Caver, and after quite a desperate struggle, the Gamma layer skill penetrated the Beta layer skill and 3 huge gashes appeared on Caver's body. The ribs of Mad God Bear could be seen through these deep cuts. Still not dead? He raised his sword to launch another attack. But before he could do it, the black silhouette crawled behind him, and within a blink, the sparkling ball of spiritual energy appeared in his head. That was the Gamma layer skill of Ezra Zephyr, glittering wind and light. The ball was thrown like a rock, speedy and shiny. Carlo was surprised by the sneak attack, but he was not worried a bit. A simple teleport could dodge this attack. However, a certain angry bear was still alive. GRAAWWWWWWLLLL. With a rumbling roar from Mad God Titan, the entire forest vibrated a bit. Carlo, who was ready to teleport, was stunned. He couldn't move. That was the inborn skill of Mad God Bear that he learned. Ezra could feel the emotions of Caver, and he learnt the name of the skill. It was Angry Growl. The stun only lasted for 0.4 seconds, but it was enough time. The glittering wind and light ball arrived. BHHOM. A resonant blast reverberated. Dust woke up from the blast and withered slowly. The man appeared inside a large pit made by glittering wind and light, was soaked in his blood. His hand was on his chest, and he lightly mumbled. Third seal, unlock. Third seal, unlock. The anxious Ezra looked at him with both of his eyes wide open as the opponent of his unlocked his last seal. An eruption of strange dense grayish chi burst out of his body. Both of them were at first level of the core formation stage, but the difference was tremendous. Ezra finally felt the terror of the inequality of spirits grade. Both martial spirits were mythic. In terms of caliber and standing, the monstrous wolf of Norse, Fenrir, surpassed the hero of Lanao Lake, Raja Indarapatra. But now, things were the opposite. A variable that was not in Fenrir's calculation appeared ahead of measured time. Mad God Bear stood and growled. His size grew from 2.7 meters to 2.8 meters, and so were his muscles. Carlo Aur, who was tattered and battered, was not fully healed. This indicated that the seal was not only a power-concealing imprint, but much more complicated. Carlo teleported and appeared around the big bulky Caver. He swung his sword. Boom. No skill or martial art was used, yet the simple attack carried such a level of spiritual energy. The only thing Caver could do was use Angry Growl, but he couldn't get a chance. 3 slashes cleanly cut his body into 3 pieces, and the Mad God Bear fell to the ground, and blood flooded out of his body. Seeing that Ezra Zephyr's heart beat fast, it sounded like ritual drums. He couldn't grasp the otherworldly speed. Was it possible to achieve such a speed difference, despite being in the same realm? The questions which others asked about Ezra were asked by Ezra himself. Carlo looked at the Werewolf Prince and raised his Omaka Yurumi sword. The grayish thick chi surrounded the weapon of Carlo Aur as he uttered. Whippy blade, shoot. 3 different blades extended and zipped like a shooting star. Ezra instinctively raised his both weapons to block the attack. Clang kung. The 2 of the blades hit Efsa and Dripa, knocking his arms which were guarding his body, while the 3rd blade penetrated his chest. Blood came out of Ezra's mouth. He tried to seal his lips, but couldn't. The grayish chi imbued with Omaka was destroying his insides. With a muffled cough, the blood came out. With a slight jerk of his hand, the Yurumi sword's blades moved differently. The one inside Ezra's chest made its way out by slicing him from his chest all the way to his shoulder. Whippy blade, dancing Yurumi. The blades all moved differently and slashed the body of Ezra Zephyr. His entire body was decorated with deep fissures. His left limb was intact with nothing but skin, the joints were cut by Omaka. Ezra fell to his knees, even his heels and tendons were cleanly slashed. Carlo, who was calm like a lake, knew that the liveliness was about to leave his opponent's body, but he was told by his master to not leave room for doubt. Gamma layer skill, dimensional slash. He used the skill to end the life of Ezra once and for all and seal the fate of Fenrir as well. With that accomplished, not only his fame will skyrocket in Las Filipinas, but he will become a hero of the entire upper realm once this news reaches sufficient ears. GGRAAWWWWR. The mad god Titan who was into pieces beside Carlo growled. Carlo, or who didn't pay any attention to him, was flabbergasted. "It's alive," he said and tried to teleport. However, he failed. He was stunned by cover for the second time. The carved body of Mad God Titan merged at lightning speed as black bolts flickered around the cut parts. He moved his arm and his mighty big paws slashed the body of Carlo. The long greenish dagger-like claws dug inside his chest and cleaved his skin. Carlo grunted in pain as he regained control of his body. He quickly teleported to make some distance. He landed 100 miles away on the top of a thick dense tree and concealed his spiritual energy. He touched his chest and found 5 clean cuts on it. "Ag, what is happening?" he asked himself in confusion. That martial animal is an undead. Even the hero of Lano Lake was shocked. An undead. Carlo gasped and looked at the bear again, who was lurching his head to find him. "He doesn't look like an undead, no matter how you see it." Raja Indarapatra pondered for a moment and said, "That is exactly what troubles me. He is the product of Fenrir." The black lightning that flickered on him when he growled belonged to that host of Fenrir. Carlo's eyes widened. He didn't pay attention to the existence of this bear. He assumed that it is a martial animal from this forest-like ground. "Now that you said it, Master, it never attacked Ezra and only showed its aggressive barrage at me." While this all happened, the Prince of Bloodfang Kingdom was seriously wounded and was on verge of death. Used his only limb that was intact, his wolf head bracelet shinned in black lightning and a small bottle appeared in his hand. The bottle had a greenish liquid in it, it had a marvelous light green hue surrounding it, and it smelled like paradise. That was the syrup of Asclepius. That was the same syrup which helped the prince's parents, Mirza Zephyr and Tanya in Viastus. He used the remaining bit of spiritual energy to revive Mad God Bear in order to buy time. His hand shook tremendously as he gathered his strength to lift his hand. With unyielding efforts, the bottle reached his lips and he chugged down the greenish syrup. Soon, an enormous change occurred inside the body of the prince. All the deadly wounds on his body started to heal at a visible rate. The vitality that was almost vanished came back, the brightness in his body came back, and all the exhaustion he had disappeared without a single trace. Black bolts danced around his body viciously. Carlo Aur saw a surge of spiritual energy. He looked and found that the almost dead Ezra was now full of vitality. His eyes widened and his mouth gaped. "You fool, hurry and kill him!" yelled Raja Indarapatra. But before him, another figure appeared in front of Ezra with a loud bang. Who it could be other than Kavar, he came to protect his master and growled at Carlo Aur. The latter was paused. "Kill him, now!" Despite the yell of Raja Indarapatra, Carlo was stunned. With his brother's death, he was forced to unlock all seals, the existence of Fenrir, the undead, and now the strange revival of Ezra. With all the sudden and unexpected turn of events, he was paused. This was sufficient time for the werewolf prince to raise. The man in the black coat looked lively. The black coat was the same and looked untouched. If he didn't wear that coat he would have been divided into many pieces. The coat was of a legendary tier. Ezra looked at Carlo Aur, his scarlet eyes shined with power. "Boy, this shouldn't be enough. It will take him a few swings to mess you up like before," warned the monstrous wolf of Norse. Ezra nodded. "I know, and I also know what to do." Just when he finished his sentence, something mysterious happened. The body of Ezra Zephyr started to change, his body grew in size, and the jade-like white clean skin became red. His hands turned big and sharp black claws protruded. His jaws came out, sharp white fangs could be seen as he growled. His entire skin turned scarlet red, bushy tail appeared and wiggled. His eyes became wide and looked more round than before. The infamous red werewolf finally morphed into his true form, the form that was known as the vassal of God. A fully controlled morphed werewolf that even terrorized other beastman tribes. But that was not the end of it. Soon the black coat changed its appearance. The black long coat tightened and merged inside his skin, covering his vital parts and imprinting strange formation-type black lines all across the body of Ezra Zephyr. The silver-colored wolf shoulder plates also evolved. The wolf shoulder plate on the left side changed into liquid form and slowly merged with the claws. The earlier black claws now were shiny silver and sharp claws. The size was the same, but the quality was changed. The plate on the right shoulder melted in a similar manner and crawled into the mouth of Ezra Zephyr. Every single sharp fang of his became shiny and acute, including that, the long and pointy canines gleamed in silver. Last but not least, the dual weapons of Ezra Zephyr. The hook named Dripa and the short sword called Efsa. Unlike the coat and plates, they didn't change much. Only their size grew. The hook became wider and bigger, while the short sword looked like a normal-sized sword. They grew to fit the grip of their wielder as Ezra's size grew as well. From 6 feet 2 inches, he became 7 feet 1 inch in height. As the morphing completed, he gazed at Carlo Aur, who was still on the huge branch of the tree. His eyes twitched in sheer shock. He knew how powerful the morphing of a beastman is. AWWWOOO. He howled loudly, and the entire forest reverberated. Alas! It took him more time to regain his senses. If he had hit Ezra the moment Raja Indarapatra told him to, he would have killed him for sure, but now, it would be a tough battle, not to mention the existence of one furious bear. Ezra looked like a demon from stories, all red in color with strange blackish lines all over his body and teeth made of silver-like material, claws shining like silver pearls. Carlo quickly touched his chest once again. Armor of Indarapatra, equip. WHOOSSHHH. A blue-colored armor appeared on his body, a helmet of excellence. A round small shield that had a strange symbol on it and a set of armor. The chest plate was amazingly designed, it had a mythic sensation. His thighs were without any armor or clothes, but wrapped with a unique light blue tape. The long boots, attacked with bracers, reached up to his knees. Both participants were now at their very peak, both were extraordinary geniuses praised by their peers. But now, only one will remain. Ezra made the first move. Following him, Caver growled and jumped as well. The Prince of Bloodfang appeared in front of him, growling like a mad dog. He swung his sword, it cleaved the air and went smoothly, but couldn't cut the neck as Carlo teleported. He appeared in front of Mad God Bear, his sword moved as he said, "You will become problematic." He moved his hand and like before, the bear was slashed into 3 parts and fell down. Carlo turned his gaze only to find that the werewolf was already there. Huh. TONNNGGG. The hook was launched at Carlo, but he raised his shield to stop it. It sounded like a blacksmith hitting cold steel. Like a falling meteor, Carlo was sent downwards. But before it could hit the ground, he teleported and came behind Ezra. Whippy blade, shoot. The same attack that pierced the heart of the werewolf prince was coming at him once again. But the werewolf known as Ezra was not in his human form. He blocked both swords with his weapon, and when the last sword aimed at his chest arrived, he opened his mouth and bit it. The eyes of Carlo Aur widened as he was looking at the werewolf. The legendary armament was stopped by his teeth? He pondered. No, his teeth are silver. That must be a legendary tier armament. Carlo answered his question. Growling. Ezra growled. The man in blue armor pulled out his sword. Come again, said Ezra in a hoarse voice, as if a demon has possessed his body and was now speaking. Carlo was prepared to attack once more when he heard the familiar growl. GRAAWWWWWR. The Mad God Titan came into being again, and it looked more ferocious. He was 2.9 meters tall, and his muscles were threatening Carlo Aur. This is unbelievable. Raja Indarapatra commented in a low voice. The invader of the upper realm was at the very peak, and so was his opponent, the one defending the honor of the lower realm. Carlo, who was winning a moment ago, halted his march as he peered carefully at the two opponents. A werewolf with tons of hidden cards that shocked his wits beyond belief, and a bear, a tall bulky undead bear. While the man in blue armor was occupied with his thoughts, Ezra moved fast, like a passing gale. He swung his sword down as he arrived before Carlo Aur, the latter dwarfed before him. The host of Raja Indarapatra raised his small round shield. Taanng. A metallic collision rebounded, but the hand of Carlo and his shield were not budged at all. The pride and power were still there in his eyes as swung his Urumi sword. The blades wiggled before changed into whips and lashed at the red werewolf. In response, Ezra Zephyr's hook moved as well. The three Urumi swords were blocked by the hook through phenomenal movements, while the glowing sharp sword in Ezra's right hand pounded the round shield. The only advantage Carlo had was his speed, amidst the countless exchange of killing attempts. Carlo moved differently. He sent a kick. After equipping the bluish armor of Raja Indarapatra, the genius of the upper realm reached the beginning point of the mid-first level of the core formation stage. He broke through the early first stage. It was impossible to grow this fast unless one had a cheat like Fenrir. And as said, Raja Indarapatra's suit was a cheat, it buffed him slightly. Ezra saw that but couldn't move in due time, but the black line imprints rung and covered the area where the blow landed. The red werewolf was forced away many meters, and the 3 meters tall bear who was waiting for an opening to interfere came at full force. His height increased and was at 3 meters. He towered like an immovable and indestructible mountain. Whippy blade, cleaving space. 3 strange sharp gashes unleashed. They looked similar to dimensional slash, but both were very different. One was made and based on spiritual energy, while the other was the product of physical training and body movements. Although, both can relate to each other in some way. For example, a skill or a spell is inbred with spiritual energy, but when used by a finer body, its power will double. In the very same manner, when the spiritual energy is suffused and then infused in an armament, then the martial art technique will be sharpened as well. And at this time, grayish-dense spiritual energy was all around the Omaka sword. Mad God Bear couldn't dodge such a speedy move. He stroked at the attack. Baannnngg. An ear-piercing blast, and Caver was gashed gravely. Carlo was in no mood to give time for breath. Whippy blade, shoot. The same 3 blades stopped the wiggling and snaky movements. They extended and shot like 3 straight glossy spears. First and biggest sword pierced the heart of Mad God Bear, the second biggest aimed his throat and penetrated it, while the last smallest one's objective was to destroy the brains as it made a hole in Caver's forehead. That was it. The Mad God Bear didn't make any noise, and fell to the ground. Be that as it may, for Carlo, this much was not enough. Whippy blade, Urumi dance. The callous whipper slashed and thrashed the giant bear with his Omaka Urumi sword. Pieces of fresh flesh fell on the ground as the entire body of Mad God Bear slowly sliced into myriad size of pieces. That was how vicious the martial art called Whippy Blade was. It had a total of 5 techniques and only 3 have been used by Carlo so far. Carlo looked at the other enemy who was just blown away by his kick. He found the atrocious red werewolf smirking. His satiny silver teeth made the grin more wicked. He said nothing and the black bolts flickered again around the Mad God Bear. Once again, the angry big bear stood tall and intact. Carlo was dazzled. He gazed, with his eyes opened and mouth agape. I destroyed all his vitals, missed nothing. Master, do you have any idea what that thing is? Carlo asked helter-skelter his master. I don't know of such an undead. The destruction of the brain and heart can crumble an undead. Some are unique and move with the spiritual energy infused into them through a well-made spell formation. But his entire body was thrashed into pieces, so it should be destroyed. This is beyond my comprehension, said Raja Indarapatra. If even Master doesn't know, who else does? He prattled. There is only one possible solution, kill the string holder and the puppet will fall. Hearing these words of Raja Idarapatra, Carlo's eyebrows were raised unintentionally as he looked at Ezra Zephyr. He knew what to do. He turned his attention towards the bear and uttered in a low voice. Beta layer skill, black cell. The silver chi engulfed the strong bear and formed a square form. Carver looked at his surroundings and found himself in complete darkness, with light seized to its smallest gleam. It was a prison type of skill. Carver found himself in a large, boundaryless black hole. Seeing the bear occupied, he paid no heed and dashed towards Ezra, much faster than anyone to catch him. The black cell skill caused a huge drain in his spiritual energy, but it was worth a shot. He didn't use teleport this time, even though it is an alpha-level skill, but it still is a skill, and excessive use will exhaust both body and spiritual energy. The Prince of Bloodfang Kingdom didn't back down and bared his fangs as he clenched the dual-enlarged weapons in his hands. Carlo appeared and swayed his hands. Omaka, the Urumi sword, moved and changed its stance. From wiggly to solid and from short to extended, all for one single purpose: to land a clean hit. Nevertheless, the prince wasn't a nobody, he moved like an abnormal being. His efsa, dripa, and sharp teeth fought back the three blades. He sometimes used the glypnit to cause the long-range attacks. With each passing second, their space grew, and a giant gap of 50 meters appeared between them. But their attacks were non-stop. Carlo's three whip-like blades lashed at its opponent, and Ezra Zephyr used the invisible chain and handled efsa and dripa as whips. After countless collisions in the mid-air, soon the winning side came into sight. It was the side of the upper realm invader. He used one hand to fight and another hand that held the shield to defend. Awuwu. The werewolf prince howled. As his mouth opened, the wind started to flatter and black bolts thundered. A shiny ball started to emerge. Glittering wind and light. The prince used the gamma layer skill that he knew. The power of that ball was now tripled, and the original 1-foot ball evolved into a 3-foot ball. Like a spit, he spat the glittering wind and light at the man in blue armor. The latter teleported and reached a branch of a thick tree. He spread his hands and said, "Gamma layer skill, space descent." The spiritual energy around Carlo Aur started to deluge at a frightening speed. The face of Ezra Zephyr changed. He could feel the danger that was coming. Grayish energy became like a cloud of smoke and scattered everywhere. The spiritual energy of Carlo even reached the feet of Ezra Zephyr, but he quickly jumped away. As soon as he was about to land on a tree branch, the tree vanished. The red werewolf was bewildered. He looked below, and his eyes almost popped out. The entire land beneath his feet was gone. Around 200 square meters in width and 70 meters in the depth of a land vanished into thin air. Ezra, who was in the very middle, fell hopelessly. He tried to use glypnit, but he failed. Soon, the red werewolf fell into the big pit, and right when he was about to reach the bottom, he saw something unbelievable. The land that was missing suddenly came into midair and was falling into its original position at devastating speed. Out of 100 times, Ezra Zephyr's probability to survive this attack was 0. Such a huge chunk of land, who would dare to block it, push it back and move out at the same time? It seemed that the fate of the werewolf was decided. DDHHANNNNNNNG. The land fell in its position. The entire forest was vibrating from the shock. Carlo could feel that the fluctuations from beneath the land disappeared. He knew that his opponent is no more alive, and just when he said that, he felt dizzy. "I used too much spiritual energy," he said to himself. His legs shook a bit, but he contained his composure. He looked into the sky for the mysterious voice, but nothing came. That only indicated that Ezra was still alive or someone else who needs to be killed. He turned to look at the black prison, covered with his grayish aura, and an exhausting smile appeared on his face. "Now, time to think of a way to defeat this savage undead," he said to himself. He stepped forward, slowly taking his precious time to breathe, but with each breath, it became louder and louder. He came close and waved his hand. The prison began to wither. Carlo clenched his sword and was ready to hear the loud angry growl, and just as he thought, a loud cry appeared. "Awuwu." Carlo smiled for a millisecond, but soon it disappeared. That was not the growl of a bear, but the howl of the werewolf. His heart sank in despair, and from the grayish chi, two shiny objects were shot. The blue-armored youth flinched and lurched his hands to knock away the weapons, and he was successful in blocking Efsa and Dripa. However, at that time, something unexpected was happening in front of Carlo. Ezra Zephyr was in a martial arts stance, his both feet were synced while his right hand was stretched backwards as if he was loading an ultimate power. Ezra Zephyr's eyes shone in red as if it was itching for killing. Art of survival, palm of holiness. Ezra Zephyr said the words aloud. What? The heart of Carlo Aur skipped a beat when he heard that. This can't be happening, how could he learn a martial art? He asked himself in disbelief. But before his master could answer him, Ezra triggered his arm. Phraa. A voice resounded, a martial technique that tore apart the air itself to make the way. No one could clearly see what Ezra did, they all saw his hand which was stretched behind extended forward at lightning speed. Before a blink of an eye, little bolts of black lightning flickered on Carlo's chest. Phhaa. With a loud slapping sound that quaked the whole forest, the man in blue armor bounced hundreds of meters away, smashing all the giant trees that came in his way. After crumbling a lot of timber, the body of Carlo Aur stopped. He felt as if his chest was devastated and his entire ribcage was cracked, his head was groggy. He looked at his armor, a shallow print of werewolf palm was there along with a bit of dying black lightning. Blood dripped out of his nose, and his breathing became heavy. Carlo! Hang in there, said Raja Indarapatra. But before the exhausted Carlo could say, the reddish figure appeared in front of him once again, it was Ezra Zephyr, and he was panting as well. Who, taught you that? Asked Carlo. Ezra shook his werewolf head. No one, I made it, he replied in a hoarse scary voice. The eyes of his widened once again. Impossible, he uttered. Nothing is impossible in this world, your ignorance has killed you, he said as he showed the neck of Carlo to his sword.